April 15th, 2026. We're in the Nauset Meeting Room of Town Hall. It's just a little after 5 p.m. On the top of our agenda is the virtual dial-in information using Zoom, if you wish, as well as a phone and webinar ID to dial in. Your chair, Kevin Galligan, I'll call the meeting to order. Around the table, select board members are here. Andrea Shaw-Reed, Michael Herman, Meph Runyon. I'm sure we're expecting Mr. Matheson, and town manager is here at the podium getting things set up. Assistant town manager and Amanda Converse, our public information officer, and also executive assistants Molly Bates and Laura St. John Dupuy. Welcome everybody to the meeting. First item of business is call to order, which I just did. Michael, would you be so kind to read the preamble?
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you. We acknowledge with respect that we are inhabiting the traditional lands of the Wampanoag peoples who have always existed here. We value their roles as past, present, and future guardians of this land.
Thank you, Michael. And are there any announcements from the select board or staff?
Yes, just one.
Please.
Arts Week is happening next week. I believe it's next week, school vacation week, and it's the biggest and most robust Arts Week for all kinds of opportunities for individual classes, families, generations of families, and just want to acknowledge the work of the Cultural District and their partnering arts organizations to make it happen.
Thank you very much.
How do people find out about the schedule?
It's on, thank you. It's online. If you just go to the website, it's all there.
Great. Any other announcements, Michael?
I have one. I know I mentioned before about the dedication in Veterans Park regarding the Indigenous marker. It looks like they've rescheduled that to July 20th due to conflict in scheduling, which is also the summer solstice and is also the time that the farmers market is going to host the Wampanoag Singers and Dancers again on that same day. We did that again 2 years ago at the farmers market, and it was very, very well received, and we're redoing it again. This, if everybody remembers, this was back from a warrant article of 2024 for education and awareness, and just wanted everybody to know, and I'll update people on details as it progresses. I'm not sure if we need to vote. I don't think so. I don't think we voted last time since it was a warrant article, but either way, the town staff has been very helpful so far, and we'll continue on updating. Thank you.
Great. Any other board or staff updates, announcements? Okay, moving to public comment. I see Mary Wright already teed up. Mary, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, this is Mary Wright, 83 Main Street, on behalf of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, just to remind everyone that the town of Orleans is still in a drought. Orleans is again implementing mandatory water use restrictions for users of town water and private wells. Unfortunately, the snow received this winter was not sufficient to replenish the underground reserves. Recognizing that the Cape is an area of significant drought, the town will follow the water conservation guidelines of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Between May 1 and December 31, all non-essential outdoor water uses are banned, except that watering ornamentals and gardens with drip irrigation, handheld hose, or watering cans may be permitted. These measures are necessary to preserve our community's water resources and ensure that all residents have safe access to safe and reliable water during this critical period. All water users will be receiving this flyer in their water bills in April. This will also be available certainly online and at many spots within the town. So just wanted to make everybody aware of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a chief question?
During public comment, we typically don't, but why don't you go ahead, Ken?
I just want to know how that's going to be enforced.
So the question of the water restriction enforcement is one of, first, if you see a violation, call out your neighbor. That means calling the water department at 508-240-1200. Sue or Laura will take your call, and normally they'll assume the individual has not heard the messages and will get a letter. If there's a second reported violation, they will get a fine. A third, the fine goes up. A fourth, the fine goes up. So we do have some enforcement provisions, some. Please, public comment continues. Ken Heritage,
I'll sit here if I might.
whatever's comfortable, Ken.
A bed. Naturally, I'm here to comment on the fire rescue station. And I had a couple of comments with some of the board just before the meeting, but please take that into account. I don't like the fact that the charge that you all gave the board and Ted is totally different than what I think is going on now. I'm not saying I disagree with what route we're going, but the charge specifically says, and I'll read, the facility shall incorporate all available technologies, not may or anything else, shall. That means one would have to make the building airtight. You would have geothermal. You'd have fast closing doors. You'd have windows galore. You'd have a canopy on the sun side, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that's included in the numbers now, and I don't think we can afford it. So I think you need to formally change the charge. Otherwise, somebody may bring this up later when we all don't like it. So, okay? So that's my comment on that. The second item is transparency of the project cost. We, and I say we, the town right now is looking at 60 million. But that's not the true project cost. The project cost includes, and looking at Ted's estimate from Monday, I didn't see anything for bond fees. That's about 600,000. I didn't see anything for general liability insurance or builder's risk, moving expenses, town administration costs, all of that. I expect that's over $1 million. All right? Beyond that, we're buying or have bought 2 pieces of land. That's another $2 million. This is all added to the cost. And whether it goes to debt or not is not my concern. It's coming out of taxes. And I think the people need to know this. Now, beyond that, unless Rich can correct me, we've not yet made a decision on whether we're going to sewer or septic system. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars is that? Is there any money in the budget to dispose of the asbestos-contaminated material at the existing fire station? I know the demolition was included, but is the asbestos, you've got to have to take it to a special dump. So is that cost there? Is the cost for demolishing the dentist building, is that included? You know, is the 800,000 of that Ted put in there for limited net zero, does that include the solar system and the batteries? So as I look at it, we're looking more at a 64 million plus project. And I think the people of town should be told that if that's what the case is. Not go on looking at it as though it's 60 million. And beyond that, the warrant article, I'm sorry? The warrant article, item 17, I believe, says that the 60 million includes all incidental and related costs. So some people might interpret that that's the 2 million for the land, that's coming out of the 60 million. So I would just ask you to clarify all this so that everybody's on the same page.
Thank you very much, Ken.
The final thing I'd like to say is I'd like to compliment Ted and his team have done a fantastic job in the short time they've had.
You're here. Well said. Any other public comment? And again, for folks that might speak, the mics in this room are very sensitive. They pick up everything. So please,
Shall I stay here or there?
however you're comfortable,
Okay.
please.
I'll sit down. I'm Bob Sinclair, Tonsett Road. I want to share some information with you, constructively suggesting some data that you may or may not be aware of. Recently, I had a sociologist colleague help me define the various groups that exist within our community. And I was surprised to discover how many groups there are. I was also surprised to discover that the groups are in flux, not only in size, but also in changing. And we can anticipate that there will be groups here in our community that aren't here at the present time. This brought me to the point of thinking carefully about the decision-making of the select board and how complex it is, given the fact that your responsibilities, I think, are indeed related to making sure there's quality of life for all people within our community. I did some research on articles that have come before the people in our town over the past 5 years. There are 169 articles that took place in the 5 years meetings of our town meetings. Not one, at the bottom of the articles, it lists the nature of the vote of the select board, which is influential in terms of the nature of the dialogue that takes place, I think. Of the 169 articles over the past 5 years, there was not one no vote. Not one. The articles that appeared in the warrants, 169 of them over the past 5 years, had no votes. I'm not sure if what this means exactly, but there are a few things that come to mind that I want to share also. Incidentally, there were 4 occasions over the past year where one member of the select board decided not to vote. Not a no vote, but just decided not to vote. A couple things come to mind. What is the tolerance for dissent? And how are people treated who indeed bring to your attention an alternative to the dominant way of thinking? 169 votes, all yes. Another thing that suggests to me the difference between persuasion and information. When an article comes before the people of this town, is the role of the select board to persuade the people in a direction that they have all agreed to? Or is it to provide information that includes alternative ways of thinking so that the people in the town of the various groups have a way of joining with the nature of the substance of what's being discussed? For me, I suggest that human variability demands alternatives. Seldom do we find alternatives coming from the select board at the town meeting. In fact, if one thinks about persuasion, articles, or shall I say leaflets, often come in the mail that I think are veiled in a way in which they're supposed to be information, but indeed they're persuasion. In addition to that, members of the select board also leave their seats and join the audience, particularly at times in which the nature of the discussion seems to be going in a direction that might be different than what everyone approved or agreed to. And members of the select board actually speak in a way in which they want what they have already agreed to as a select board. I think that we have to think very carefully about how the nature of the changing groups within our community are being represented, how they influence the nature of what appears in terms of articles, and if the select board indeed is providing information or attempting to persuade. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else for public comment? Anyone online?
No hands raised.
All right, thank you, Peggy. We will close public comment, and next up, I think, Mark Reel, you'd like to introduce the flow of the fire rescue presentation for this evening.
Yes, thank you. So this evening, we're going to be utilizing this fire rescue presentation time frame for the recording that we're going to use online so that folks can go back and see the snippet of this meeting and learn about the fire rescue station. So we ask that folks hold their comments or questions to the end of the presentation. First, you're going to have Chief Deering speak, then you'll have Ted Galante from TGAS speak. He's our architect and designer for the project. And then Darren Tangeman, the finance director, will speak about tax impact, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Welcome, Chief. Good to see you.
Good evening, Jeff Deering, Fire Chief, here tonight to speak to Article 17, fund the construction of a new fire rescue station, and how important that the role of the fire rescue department plays in protecting the lives and property of the citizens and visitors of our community. We know, we've established over the years that our current station is outdated with major deficiencies. At the time it was built in 1987, it was built for 15. Our current staff is 33 full-time equivalents. The interior layout slows our response time. This is an ongoing challenge of the current facility. And importantly, the health and safety of our staff is in peril with improper decontamination and lack of separation of spaces and the ongoing air quality issues. The current station, as it was built, was built in 1987. At the time it was constructed, there were 2 members on duty. Shortly after the building was occupied, it went to 3 members on duty. And at the time, the fire department moved from the police station at the corner of Eldridge Parkway. They had 3 bays and 2 rooms, so it was an improvement at the time. During the design of the current fire station, 5,000 square feet was cut from the design of that building in a cost-cutting measure, resulting in a smaller building. In 1987, gender spaces were not a thing in fire stations. They were added later by the members of the department. The current building is just under 11,000 square feet and is plagued with ongoing issues including air quality, mold, rodents, roof leaks, recurring plumbing and electrical problems. We have an ongoing lack of space for staff training in our equipment. You'll see in some of the photos, the layout of the building makes it hard for it to operate. We don't have a proper decontamination area, which is in the bottom right. That's what a makeshift area that we've constructed over the last couple years. Furthermore, there's a fitness area that is really important to the health and safety of our staff that is in the middle of the apparatus bay. The ladder truck actually backs into that workout area. It's the same area where firefighters are coming back and forth from calls. In the bottom right, or excuse me, bottom left photo, that's the public lobby of the fire station. It's also where several hundred people every year come in with a medical emergency. So you could walk in to get a permit and there's someone having chest pain at the same time in front of you. Those are just a few of the challenges. So what has brought us to the point of needing a new fire station? Importantly, the changes in the mission of the fire department over the years has provided a need that is different than it was in 1987. The types of work that your firefighters do on a daily basis has changed drastically in nearly 40 years. Furthermore, the health and safety of firefighters, the concerns of that have become real. We didn't know those things in 1987 when the station was built. There isn't a proper separation of living quarters from the apparatus and the hazardous equipment. We don't have the decontamination areas. We don't have modern ventilation. And that puts our firefighters, your firefighters, at risk for long-term health issues. It's important to note that firefighters nationally have a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer. These are things that we need to engineer into our buildings to make it safer for our staff. Additionally, response times and operational readiness are affected by the current layout of the building. We just can't get out of that building fast enough because of the layout of it, and that affects response time. Additionally, the station doesn't meet modern building codes or accessibility standards. They really weren't a thing in 1987, but the building is not ADA compliant. It doesn't meet the structural rules for major storms or natural disasters, when that building would be most vulnerable and most necessary. Another thing that has affected that building is staffing. When the station was built, there were 2 members on duty. We're now currently at 7. We've had to make those changes over the years because the fire service has changed. In that 1987 to 2025 period, we've seen a steady increase in the calls that we respond to, from about 800 in 1987 to 2,866 in calendar year 2025. We've also seen the staffing increase from about 12 full-time equivalents to 33. So we're still doing the same work with more people in a small space. Over the last few years, we've had multiple independent studies and assessments that have confirmed what the community already knows. The current station is functionally obsolete. We need a new facility that protects our staff and ultimately protects the community going forward. So what have we done? We've done a lot. The station was built in 1987, but since 2019, the town has engaged in a number of studies and plans to look at what the needs are of the station. Going back to 2019 was when the first feasibility study was started for that. An HVAC study, the strategic plan, the staffing study that was done. All of those spoke to the needs and the challenges of the current building. In 2021, there was another fire station feasibility study. And as part of that, as a break off to that, there was a location study done that showed us through data that the 58 Eldridge Parkway area is the most ideal location for a fire station here in Orleans based on response time. 2025 campus study again looked at the uses and where we could site a station on there. 2025, the voters were gracious enough to approve the design funding that has brought us to where we are today, as well as in November 2025, the article that purchased the 56 Eldridge Parkway property, the advanced dental property that was transformational to the siting and location of the new station. And here we are, coming up on Maytown meeting, looking for the potential to construct a new station. I think it's important to recognize the ongoing deficiencies of that station. Again, the health and safety of the staff, how those health and safety issues affect our service delivery to the public. Even just the driveway alone is that emergency vehicles are mixing with civilian vehicles, and the potential for an accident there is real every single day. Questions I get a lot. Chief, how did we get to this program? How did we get to this floor plan? Well, looking back through those various studies, we have worked with the various consultants over the years to look at what are the needs of that station, what are the smart things that we should have as part of it, what is the potential needs right now and in the very near future, and then work with the consultants to design those spaces. We're very cognizant of how big those spaces are, but what the needs are. And we're trying to be very smart about designing a building that's appropriate for the service that we provide. We want to have space to put the equipment in. We're at the point right now where we're designing apparatus around the building, not designing apparatus to serve the community. We also have required training needs that we can't meet in the current facility. We just can't do them. We don't have the spaces. The design that we're working with right now, still very much being refined, looks at what the current and future needs are of the fire department over the lifespan of that building, hopefully 50 years plus. Very hard to predict 40 years ago when they built the fire station what it would look like today, but I bet they would do it a little different. And we've also learned from the mistakes of our neighbors that many of the fire stations that have been built, and other municipal projects, but specifically fire stations, are built for the fire department in the time they're in, at the time they occupy it. And as soon as they move in, it's too small, or something changes, and now they're trying to capture space that they don't have. We want to be smart about that. We want to be very careful. We take that very seriously as far as, let's build a station that's appropriate for what that fire department's going to look like now and in the immediate future. We've done that consulting with our neighbors. We've done that consulting with the different architects and designers that have been involved in the project. We look at national and local trends to gather that information and make smart decisions on that. I think it's also important to recognize the location, again, is important. This building is built around response time. What the fire department does is respond to emergencies as quickly as possible. Location is important. How fast can we get out of the building from the time we get a call to the time of a fire truck or an ambulance is on the way, but also how fast we can get to whatever location we need to go to in Orleans. And we know through the different studies that have been done that from the 58 Eldridge Parkway location, we can get to 99.6% of the properties in Orleans in 8 minutes or less, which is in line with national standards for response time. And that's a very important piece. You just can't put a fire station just anywhere. It has to be in the right spot. Ultimately, this project is critical to the public safety and to the fire and rescue operations. A new fire station will help us ensure the health and well-being of our firefighters and protect them from the hazards of their occupation. Our community invests a lot in these people to provide a very important service. We want to make sure that they're healthy to deliver it now and into the future. We need to remove the obstacles of a slow response time. A new layout of the building will help do that. We must ensure that the training and readiness of firefighters is there to respond to emergencies by having the appropriate training facilities to meet the required training that we can't currently meet. We want to protect our vehicles and equipment from the weather and make sure it's ready to respond. The salt air, the winters here are very harsh on our equipment. Much of it is parked outside, and that affects the long-term investment on those vehicles. Ultimately, by having a new fire rescue station, it maintains the quality of life that we all enjoy in this community, whether it's the firefighters providing towards that quality of life or the citizens enjoying it. At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Ted Galante to talk a little bit more about where we are right now with the project.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I'm not sure about the computer.
And as we're switching technologies, I want to thank the chief. And as he mentioned, the process that has gone through most recently has involved so many folks. Thanks to the Fire Rescue Building Committee, some members are here today, but I know in speaking to the chief, he has shared plans that have been developed with the assistance of the architect with all his members for input. So this is really, really a team effort, and one that I know the select board is really appreciative of. Ted, we got an update from the building committee chair last meeting. Thank you, David, for that, and we're certainly looking forward to your presentation today. And I would just say, hopefully, some of the comments you heard, and I took a long list of those that we heard at public comment, you may be able to address in your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board, Town Administrator. I'm just waiting for the screen to show up. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, good evening. I'm going to go over a number of things. I have a lot of slides. I talk quickly, and I'll try and be thorough. But after presentation, welcome questions. I have to turn this on, I suppose. So we're just going to go over quickly the feasibility study that was done in 2021, search for the new site that was done in 2022, the campus plan analysis in 25, some of the existing site conditions, discussion about net zero. We're going to review the building plans, the conceptual plans where they stand now, the conceptual massing, the schedule, and the cost. So I'll go through those things rather quickly. In 2021, we were asked to do a study, and I understand that there are studies that were done before we were involved, of the existing fire rescue station. We came out and did a thorough analysis of the building and fundamentally wrote an executive summary. I won't go through all the slides, that there is so many problems with this building that Chief Daring just talked about, and many more. There's only so much we can cover in these presentations, that it really is time for the building to be replaced. There's many deficiencies. I won't go through all of these, but here are some of the site deficiencies on the outside of the building. There are many on the inside of the building. But one of the things that the chief mentioned that we take very seriously, firefighters are some of the most generous people that, they run into burning buildings, they drive 2 car accidents, and they take care of all of us when something goes wrong. They are subject to exposure in various ways, in contaminants, carcinogens, that their PPE, their personal protective equipment, is supposed to cover. This slide shows some of that. A lot of that PPE goes back to the firehouse. Sometimes it goes home. And one of the big concerns for us is absolutely the firefighters, but the firefighters' children. We don't want any of this PPE contaminating their car, contaminating their personal vehicles, getting anywhere near their house. It needs to be decontaminated at the fire station. And that's a big part of what we focus on, decontamination. There's an NFPA standard that talks about hot zones, transition zones, and cold zones. The current building is fundamentally a hot zone. The fact that there's a fitness room on the apparatus bay is hurting our firefighters and possibly hurting their families. We can't have that, right? The red components are the hot zone, the green are the healthy zone, the cold zone, and there should be a yellow transition zone between them. We divide it up architecturally and with a mechanical system. This building does not have that. As you can see, the building is too tight. There's pathways for carcinogens to get from the apparatus floor to the other parts of the building, and people are, what happens when we work out, right? We breathe heavy, we inhale a lot. Well, if we're doing that on an apparatus floor where there are carcinogens, that is totally unacceptable, and I think that's something that we all need to focus on. Turnout gear, it needs to be cleaned and stored properly in a decontamination room with proper extractors and washers and dryers. It's not to be stored on the apparatus bay where it is here. It's not to be exposed to sunlight because UV damages it, which potentially puts the firefighters at risk. So designing a clean fire station, designing a building that protects our firefighters also protects their families and the community, and that's essential. And that's one of the key findings of the 2021 study. In 2022, the town hired another consultant, KBA, with Mitchell Associates. Bob Mitchell and I speak nationally at fire station conferences. We've been doing it for 20 years. And they recommended, it was a site study, they recommended this location, 46 Eldred Parkway, as they've called it, as the best location in town for the fire station. So independently of our firm, another firm that's one of our competitors, but we work with nationally, recommended this, and we agree with that. 2025, my colleague Tina Tanyos and I did an analysis, a master plan, as it were, for this entire property, for the elementary school, for the fire station, for a community building, and to reimagine this part of the land. Out of that came many things, the possibility of a future elementary school, the green blocks on the left, the possibility of a future recreation facility, the blue building, moving around some fields, but also a new fire station. And the new fire station, what I'll point out is at the bottom of the slide are the 2 dental offices here, and the new fire station is set back here beyond the existing fire station. The floor plan, interestingly enough, looking back at some of the earlier studies that our competitors did, is the same size, right? They're looking at the same size building. This program has been a question and a need for the Orleans Fire Rescue Department for many, many years. 2026, we are now where we start. We look at the existing property. The town made the very wise decision to purchase the dental office and to purchase additional land nearby. We start to look at that facility and understand how maintaining the existing facility for use by the fire department allows us to build another building adjacent, so that services can be delivered, and saving a lot of money not having to build another facility, a temporary facility elsewhere. And so we can go through this. These are quick. We're cutting this section in half, cutting the site in half. One of the complexities of the site are all the dips in the land. We've studied that that extensively. We've studied where we might locate the building on the site, whether it's a 3-story building or a 2-story building. We did a very thorough analysis. At this point in the discussion, we were sharing a driveway with OES. That has since advanced where we're not doing that any longer. There's a bunch of phasing diagrams. Ken, you would appreciate these, and you'd probably be able to give us some great feedback. But there's a bunch of phasing diagrams where we talk about how the construction can happen and keep the fire department up and operational currently in order to develop the site and then eventually take down the fire station and operate out of the new building. Out of that study, extensive research and analysis and cost, it was established that a 2-story building is the most cost-effective rather than a 3-story building. Leveling the site is part of that. We've had geotechnical borings done, which for those who don't know that term, it's about you drill holes in the ground and you assess the quality of the soil. I'm happy to report, we just got the preliminary report 2 days ago. The soil is very suitable to standard spread footings without any complexities of deep footings. There are some soil we have to cart away, not too much, but we're in a good spot with geotech. And so that's a really important finding for the cost of a building and how we develop a building. We've studied if we can develop the building and keep the existing facility long-term. We think that that's not a feasible option. We think it's going to be an expensive option, and it's going to primarily it's going to force us to not hit net zero, which is another big piece of the puzzle, and it would add a lot of cost and complexity to the project. We are landing on a site plan that now takes OES access road out of the discussion. We have an access road in where the existing access road is. We have an access road out around the other side, preventing the concerns that the chief rightfully has and his team rightfully have about having one access road and an incident happening on that access road, and then people not be able to get in and out, and the fire not be able to deliver their services. We have apparatus, excuse me, we have apparatus coming out of the front of the building, the major apparatus, and we have the minor apparatus coming out of the rear of the building. We've been able to, through a lot of iteration and gyration, we have Eldridge Parkway is clearly the front of house now, and so we can now have an entrance to the front of the building. Someone can come in, they can go into the front of the building. A visitor can come in, go into the front of the building, go get their blood pressure taken outside of public view. They have privacy, and the fire department can operate as they need to operate. A call can come in, they can deploy safely out as they need to, etc. The site gets leveled out. We're doing it in a way where we can not build a retaining wall. We're trying to navigate placement on the site. Again, the acquisition of that 0.48 acres really is a wise approach from the town because it allows some latitude in how we put this facility together, and that's working out very well. Okay, let me take a breath. Net zero. Net zero is employing renewable energy sources on site to offset all energy used on site, right? So regenerate energy on site and use that to power the facility. That's the goal of net zero. There are many more complex components to net zero, and we have the what I would say is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts guru on the call for questions and answers later, Chris Schaffner from the Green Engineer. He's been a fantastic consultant of ours and was on Deval Patrick's Sustainable Energy Resource Development way back in the day and has been working with us, and he can speak much more thoroughly to this. I won't go into it too much, but Chris and I and others are just finishing up the Cambridge main headquarters building, where we are drilling 22 geothermal wells and putting solar panels, photovoltaic panels, to make this a net zero building. So that project is in process, and we'll know more very soon because the building is about to be finished. In Exeter, New Hampshire, a town that we never thought would opt for net zero, actually on town floor, mandated that the building become net zero and didn't increase the budget. But we have 127 kilowatt of generation on that building. In Chelmsford, Massachusetts, they actually just received $1 million grant from I forget the exact group is a state grant for geo and solar panels. So we're putting them on those facilities. In Belmont, we just finished a unrelated building. Those are all fire station public safety buildings I just showed you. In Belmont, we just finished a new ice rink, an ice hockey rink. For anybody who knows Belmont's hockey rink, they sorely needed this. But we have 23,000 square feet of solar panels on there, generating a fair amount of energy. So this is the trend, and this is the way things are moving and the way we think we can take the Orleans project. What we're starting to consider in this schematic design phase that we're in, this is a plan showing some array of photovoltaic panels on the roof, right? Where the south is here, so we have good sun exposure, and possibly augmenting this with a solar canopy in the back. The size, configuration of those things is still in discussion, but that's one of the approaches that we're taking. These circles represent geothermal wells. Again, early on, we need to do an energy model, and we need to sort out exactly how many geo wells. But given our experience, given our team's experience, we think we know the numbers now, and we can get us there. We just need to do a little more study to really nail this. The discussion about sewer and or septic. I can just assure all of you that the building committee has been fastidious about asking questions, driving points, and trying to think long-term about this facility, where the septic gets placed, if it's going to be connected to sewer, if there's a system where we can plan for the sewer if the town doesn't get it here fast enough. There's a forward-looking building committee that is thinking 5 chiefs down the road. That's a boon for the town. That's a really wonderful thing for the town. Building plans, really quickly. The red areas are the hot zone, right? That's the dirty area of a fire station. The yellow areas are the transition zones. We put buffers. Those are buffers between the red and the green, right? The green is the firefighter's second home. We want them to live there healthy. We want their contaminated equipment to stay in the hot zone. We decontaminate the firefighter in the hot zone. We could decontaminate their equipment. There are paths of travel where they come back from an incident, they put their gear in the extractor to clean it, they go into a shower, they clean themselves, then they go into the living quarters. And so there's a specific path of travel to make sure that those firefighters are kept healthy. The building that you're in currently does not have anything like that and cannot be configured to have that. This would be a fantastic add for the fire department for long term. In terms of building size and quality and caliber, again, at conferences twice a year, we speak on these things. Chief Daring is a fantastic chief. I'm interested in the 5 chiefs from now and how this building will work for them. That's what we're trying to do, is always look forward so that you don't repeat the 1987 problems. And that's one of the reasons we're keeping it as a low-lying building for ease of access for firefighters from the living quarters into their apparatus and deploy very easily and quickly. So it's about making it as effective and efficient as possible. Right now, we have 4 conceptual massing diagrams that we're going to show you, some quick renders. Nothing has been settled and solidified, but I'll go through them quickly. We have one that we call the net zero version, simply because it has flat roofs, and we showed you the solar panels on top, and I feel comfortable with the quantity of solar panels we're able to put on this building to get us closer to net zero. Again, we have to do the calculations. Just quick diagram. The building, the mass on the right is where all of the apparatus would be. The mass on the left is where the offices and residents will be. And so we're starting to consider treating them slightly differently. There's the transitional version. The slide just changed, and there's a peaked roof shown on the residential and office component and the flat roof on the fire station. There's a training tower in the back. I should have mentioned that. Chief Daring talked about not having training. One of the things that we do is we build training into the building, right? The fire apparatus floor needs very high ceilings. The supporting rooms need low ceilings. We use a mezzanine above those low rooms to provide training. We put in manhole covers so that when a utility worker is stuck in a manhole and needs to rescue, guess who's going to come get them? We want to train them properly, and they can go through that manhole. So the elements like that built into using the space efficiently, the volume of the space efficiently, for that to happen. That was a little sidebar. So you got the net zero, we got the transitional version, we have a clear story version to try and bring sunlight in some way, and we have the two gables version, right? So we have these four versions that we're thinking about, and fundamentally all the other elements stay the same. The floor plan stays the same, the site plan stays the same. We're really just thinking about the mass of the building here and what that might mean. Ken raises many good points about budget and funding and components. One of the things that would affect the funding and the budget of this project is the massing, right? It's clear. It's not only the size of the construction, but how do we condition that space, where sprinklers are needed, et cetera. So without talking specific numbers, if I just went through this quickly, net zero we think is $1 sign. Transitional is $2 signs. Clear story, maybe $3 signs, and two gables, $4 signs, right? Just like when you choose a restaurant on Google, is it a $30 restaurant, or is it a $50 restaurant? That's the kind of picture we're just trying to paint right now, right? We are in the schematic design phase. It is taking longer as a phase, primarily because there's been a lot of acquisition and land and discussion, and I think the town is making great decisions, and so I don't mind it taking longer. We quickly want to finish this phase right after town meeting so we can go into design development, spend the rest of the year putting all the documents together, the construction documents. There's a lot of work by a lot of engineers, by a lot of smart people that go into this. We work with the building committee throughout the whole process, with the community and community meetings throughout the process, so that we can get to a construction period. And we believe the construction is 14 to 16 months. Construction costs only go up. So if this process takes longer, the construction costs go up. So when we're putting together a budget, you'll see on the next slide, I believe, that there is an escalation, and that escalation is to a certain point in the midpoint of construction. If we move that midpoint of construction into 2028, we end up with a higher escalation. So we want to manage that as we're rolling along. Well, you can't really see this slide. This is a budget that I imagine I can zoom in, but we do. Let's go back here. Yeah, there's a number of pieces that go into this budget. Fundamentally, they are something known as hard costs and soft costs. And at some point, I'll learn how to use a computer. There we are. There you go. On the left-hand column, everything from this total estimated hard cost and up is the cost of construction. Those are the things that if you turn the building upside down, you can't shake them out, right? They're all the hard costs, what it costs, all the things that you can knock on. Our low end is 41 million. Our high end is 45 million. If we add an escalation to the midpoint of construction in December of 27, we're at 44 million and 48 million. Everything below that are soft costs, right? Those are the development costs. What it costs to pay the architects and engineers, what it costs to pay the project manager, geotechnical administration during the project, surveying, all of these components, FF&E consultant, a fire station alerting system, all of those components, and those add a fair amount to the project because they're necessary. They're all required components. Materials testing is for someone to come out and check the reinforcing steel is installed properly, et cetera. And so that's where the high end is the $60 million component, and the low end is the $53 million component, and that's kind of how we landed on there. But again, this is with very preliminary design and not full design. A decision needs to be made in order to advance to full design. To put it in context, in both Northbridge and Dennis in 2022, we finished buildings that were bidding and building at around $600 a square foot. Hard cost only, construction cost only. We are now in a position where we are estimating and bidding at $850 a square foot. That is simply the cost of construction. The Ipswich is about to go to town meeting, and Chelmsford the bids came in on Friday. So these are hard numbers, actual numbers in place right now, and so everything we're doing in Orleans is in line with everything we've been doing. I guess that's the point. I'll stop.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ted. And again, as you echoed, and I've watched or participated in the building committee meetings, that they are excellent. I mean, looking around the table, the expertise that is brought to it, everything from concerns about the school, our select board member is at the table as a voting member, keeping us informed. All the expertise is just really, as you know, asking excellent questions and always thinking ahead. So we're at a point of this being an update. Again, this was excellent, really. And I know, as was mentioned earlier, Ken mentioned it, you have been under the gun, pressed and moving. You have an incredible team that responds so well, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
But-
Thank you all for that, and
Yeah.
thank you, Ken, for that. We're delighted to be here. We're really happy to be here, and our team, Tina and others, Russell and Paulo and Michael and others are doing fantastic work back at the office. So thank you for that.
Well, the other thing for folks that don't know, and Rick Pomeroy couldn't be with us, but he is our owner's project manager hired to look out for the best interests of the town. Not that you are not doing it, but he also has a number of projects under his belt that really brings a lot of skill to the table, including, like you said, at the building committee meeting, this table of cost. He scrutinized every single line, so it gives us more confidence in terms of the experience that has been brought to it. So I'll be happy to open up to questions from the audience, but,
Still have Darren.
oh, Darren, sorry I didn't follow the menu. So Darren is going to update us on cost and potential taxpayer impacts, I understand?
Yes.
Good evening, Select Board. All right, let's see if we can get this up on the screen. Oops.
Nice, got it.
All right. So based on the budget that was just provided and the escalation that was discussed as well, tonight I'm going to provide some tax impact in terms of 60 million and even take it down a notch to a $50 million potential model to see what that impact would be to taxpayers. So based on the conversation we had a week or so ago about debt assumptions in terms of borrowing, this debt assumption would be that this borrowing would be a 30-year level debt. It'd be 4.5% borrowing rate. We're assuming we're starting with tax rate base starting point of for FY26 at the value that's shown there, $7,284,806,000. Current tax rate 6.11 per $1,000, and the median home value in FY26 of $1.15 million. We're also looking at a growth rate assumption of annualized 3.44 compound growth derived from our town 7% every 2-year valuation planning pattern. So that would be incorporated, which would project a median home value in 2031 up to $1.361 million, $1.362 million. So those are the planning assumptions. So if we were to borrow $60 million, the town approves this project at town meeting, we would place this on the 2031 debt schedule. The $60 million would translate to an increase for a median home value of $581.49 per year. So that is, and you'll see we have it broken out by essentially every value that so anyone can look at it and see how it impacts their assessed value in terms of the increase that they would see in 2031 based on $60 million. Any questions on this? Okay. And if we were to take it down to $50 million, this is what it would look like. It'd be an increase of $484.57 for the median home value in 2031. So about $100 difference for a whole year, or about $8 or $9 a month difference if you're on your mortgage.
Million.
So, and you can see the spectrum there. So that's really it. I just wanted to show this to you so that you could see what the potential impact would be, and we've broken it out in terms of value spectrum across from 250,000 to 2,650,000.
Thanks,
Any
Darren.
questions?
Any questions for Darren? So just one quick one, only for the public, and I know between Ted and Darren's looking at Molly, presentations were large in size. I do want to be sure that we'll be able to post these in a way that the community can go back to, learn, and work from, so we can get these posted. Great. So, select board members, Mark, I'm actually going to defer to you because you are on the building committee. You want to start first and share any thoughts or any questions for Ted? You good?
No, I'm good. I think it's been mentioned already. I think the building committee has really asked a lot of the hard questions, from day one. And we've gotten answers to most of those questions, and we continue to refine those things. And here we are. I mean, we still have a ways to go, but those hard questions have been asked, and the responses have been forthcoming very quickly. So, I mean, having sat through it all, I probably have less in my head that I want to ask than other people that haven't seen it, so I'll defer to everyone else.
There we go. Meth?
So I really just have two questions, and they're probably, at least the first one is for Ted. And that has to do with size of the building, cost of the building, and how that compares to projects of recent vintage in other Massachusetts towns. The slide that you had up there, it had 4 towns, Dennis and Ipswich were 2 of them. I don't think any of those projects were more than 30,000 square feet, and we're here for 40,000 square feet, right? And I'm just curious what was, what it was about Orleans that led you to that size.
Thank you for the question. I think there's a couple things. Dennis is a substation, so it is one of a few stations in Dennis, and that's why it is small. But it is still about 30,000 square feet. If it were a standalone station, it would probably be about 45 or 50,000 square feet. Ipswich is a smaller community, and they chose to go extremely lean for political reasons, I would say. Some of they're going to have a large yard that's going to have some equipment in it. And so what I'll also say is the study that was done before we were involved in programming by a firm called Mitchell Associates, Bob Mitchell, came up with fundamentally the same size building.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just one other point, and I'm not sure this is, well, it is probably you. I just want to sort of get past this net zero hang-up that's, I think the original problem is from the wording in our charge. So I liked the definition that you came up with there. It could be, a beach cottage that you build and put 1,000 solar panels up, and as long as you're able to cover the electricity costs in that cottage, then you're at net zero.
Correct.
And all the other building code issues don't really apply. You don't need to follow, I mean, you have to follow the building code, but
Yes. I wish we
fact
didn't.
that-
I wish we didn't, but yes.
But what I'm saying is it isn't necessary to get into that kind of decisions in order to reach net zero.
No, no.
All we have to do-
The energy code in Massachusetts is very strong and very stringent. It gets you close, but it does not require that you generate electricity on site. I think it's solar ready is the statement. And so, but from an energy code perspective, there is a very lean restriction on what can happen. For example, one quick example, all plumbing fixtures have to be low flow water. So in a town where there's drought, that's a concern. And so that's actually a boon for the town. HVAC systems, there's a 4-degree bandwidth. There's 68 to 72 degrees. That's all we can adjust our thermostats anymore. There's 3 degrees of dead zone on either side as the system resets, but 68 to 72 degrees. I can't tell you the number of firefighters I've had arguments with about the fact that they want it a lot colder. Passive house would put the fire department in a very uncomfortable position, and so we're selecting to not go in that direction. But the building code and energy code in Massachusetts is very stringent. We're meeting all of that criteria. The new energy code is built on British Columbia's energy code in Canada, and so that's what it's been built upon. And so all of the testing, all of the blower door testing, all of the levels of requirement are going to be there in this building.
So your financing model estimated the additional cost to the structure for net zero at $800,000. And I'm wondering if you could sort of explain what that $800,000 encompasses.
So we believe it encompasses some solar and some geothermal. We just don't know exactly how much yet. For example, the geothermal wells in excuse me a second. The geothermal wells in Chelmsford. We had 7 wells in Chelmsford, and fundamentally with some site work and with some pumps and et cetera, it's roughly $350,000 for the 7 wells. In Cambridge, 22 wells were a similar number, which is really, it's not about drilling the well and piping, it's about the equipment, it's about the labor, it's about the structure, and once they're on site. So those are the kind of numbers that we're using to start to feed Orleans. To Ken's earlier point, there's a lot that we don't know yet because we're in the design process. We need to land the plane. Which massing are we going to use? Let us get to that point, and we will do an analytical quantity survey and tell us exact numbers. That's what we're trying to get ourselves to.
So thank you. Mr. Chair, I think we should have a discussion about whether we should edit our charge.
I would pick up on that, and 2 things. One is, I looked at the charge before our meeting, and I think a simple fix we could make tonight without actually going through, publishing the charge and revising it and editing and waiting till the cows come home is just define what Ted put on the slide as our interpretation of what that means. We can vote that tonight.
And if I might offer one further bit of information, whether clarifying or complicating, Chris Schaffner from the Green Engineer is on the screen, and Chris, as I probably am not introducing him well at all, but has extensive experience in sustainability consulting, building projects statewide and elsewhere. So, Chris, I don't know if you have anything you specifically want to add.
Welcome, Chris. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. I think Ted has covered it pretty well tonight, actually. I mean, what we'll have in this building, because of the state energy code, is a very efficient building. And then the decision to get to net zero is basically including renewable energy as part of the project. And so, that obviously has some implications in the design and the cost, but that is the commitment that we're carrying forward in the design right now.
A really important piece of information that I heard in Mark Reel, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I think you're more than equipped to share what you also shared with the committee the other night, is where we had appropriated $5 million for up to 3 solar projects in town, we might actually have some flexibility to support this project. Mark?
Yeah, I would just say, as you may remember, last May, the town meeting had approved a bond authorization for up to $5 million for the 3 solar PV projects. It's very likely we'll only use $3 million of that $5 million, so you could look at the savings in that authorization and apply it to this project.
Exactly. It's really important news. I will also add too, and you know, as you had the dollar signs on the menu of which restaurant you go to, I have a energy background, and the choice of building style makes a big difference in terms of what Chris might assist you in terms of the building energy load. So
For sure.
the more compact the building, the fewer attics and eave heat loss, the lower your energy use, meaning the lower number of PV panels, the lower wells you have to drill. So again, are we aligned this way or are we aligned this way? So I think we got the right people on the team.
That's part of our next set of steps, an energy model to determine our energy use index, our EUI. So, yeah,
Kevin?
thank you.
Yeah, please.
In light of this, and Ted, I'm sorry I missed Monday's meeting. I was still on a boat, so I couldn't make it to that meeting. But one of the questions, or one of the things I wanted to ask you, so I'll do it tonight, is if we look at the definition of net zero that we're talking about in terms of producing all the energy you need on site to run the building, can we, I think it would be really, really helpful for the taxpayers and the people in town to be able to look at what we would anticipate annual cost of electricity for that building.
This would offset.
Because I know when we built our police station, with all the equipment that was in that police station, all of a sudden, the electric bill there was much higher than it had been with the old station. It was kind of a shock to some people, but, you know, this is what you get when you run everything with electricity. So anyway, if we can look at what we think the projected cost might be for energy use in that building for a year, and how much we can produce on site if we want to be net zero. Obviously, we want to try and cover that full cost. And how much money would we be saving so that you can look at this $800,000 investment could be paid back in 5 years.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that's the kind of data I think that would be very helpful for people to have.
And I believe we'll be able to generate that data once we know more about the building and
Thank you.
such.
Good point, Mark. Other board members? Andrew,
I
please.
mean, I've got five, and I want to acknowledge and thank David Jacobson is in the audience from Energy and Climate Action. They roughed out some rough, that's where I was going to in terms of payback. We make the investment up front or we make it later in terms of tax bills and carrying costs, and they had rough numbers. They also did a letter of support, I'm not sure the public's aware, for a net zero station with the same definition that's been adopted and used tonight. So I just want to acknowledge their work. First of all, I just want to say, having spent time in the building, that I don't think as a community we can support any person going to work whose job makes them ill, much less bringing it home to their family. I think we have a moral obligation, and Jeff hasn't quoted the life expectancy recently of firefighters and police in this town, but it's shockingly low. We are compounding it by having our staff work in a sick building. So this is beyond, I'm here already. I just want to, and a couple of tweaking questions. Some of the building designs lets in more natural daylight than others. And so if we could address that in terms of overall health versus the energy offsets, I would be interested. If we're looking at performance of a 50-year structure, and we know the state is going towards renewable energy, and we are a climate leader community, how could we not address the energy needs for this building? To the public, I'm asking that. I think that's a investment opportunity for us as a community, even as the technology of how that energy is generated might change. And to Jeff's point, during a storm, this should be our highest performing building, not our lowest performing. And then Mark covered my other question. That was it about let's talk about the payback from that initial how many years. That's it. No questions, just advocacy.
Thank you, Andrew. Michael?
Yes. Hi, Ted, how are you? Good. Thank you for the work you've done on this so far. I've been able to catch your meetings, and you guys have, and David as chair, come a long way. I think David mentioned to you, we had an update last select board meeting. I'm not sure if you were able to watch that.
No.
Okay. David asked if there's something we specifically, and I asked him if he could talk to you about giving us a little bit more detailed explanation of the taking down the existing fire station. I think you know it's an interest in me, and I think I've seen what the presentation is. I'm still not quite sure why we couldn't move some things around and do it. I'm not an expert. It's hard to do it if knowing that the graphics are at scale. It's not knowing what the energy consumption is going to be needed, whether we are going to need a PV ground array, whether we are going to need drill welling. I mean, I know our current station uses 88,000 kilowatts. I would assume it's going to triple, being a triple-sized building, roughly, something like that. I know it's not a one-to-one. So I'm all for the net zero. I don't know if you've seen that before.
Yep.
So whatever you're going to do, I think Mark made the point, I made it last time at the select board meeting. I'd love to see a projection going forward of the positive contribution going all electric and being net zero will give the town. I do not want to see these electric bills or utility bills on the next generation to pay off what we're doing today.
Agreed.
I think I said it, and I'll go very quickly. The last buildings we did, whether it be this building here, whether it be the DPW, whether it be the police station, whether it be the wastewater treatment plant, and I know they're going to do a ground array there, but it always got to crunch time, and it always got to talking about costs, and we always nixed all of that. All of those would be paid off right now. We'd be getting free electricity, paid for by the sun. I think we see what is happening globally now. This is nothing new on energy prices. There's going to be an energy crisis. If we are looking ahead, like you said, and everybody's planning to do this, to look ahead for 50 years, we're going to go through some severe energy crises in the next 50 years. And being able to do that now and invest in it now, I think is absolutely crucial. In regards to the old building, as you know, I'll just say quickly, this project looks like to me, roughly with the land and all the other things, it's going to be about a $65 million project. I don't see a lot of these projects coming extremely under what they're projected. We all talk about escalators and costs and et cetera. If that's the case, it's a $1,750 square foot project. That, and compared to the 13,000 square foot building we have is a $22 million building. That's going to escalate, could be 25, 30, whatever, in 5 or 10 years to replace a brand new building. It's been brought to my attention, of course, the change of use and what we would have to do to renovate, and I get all those costs there. But I really wanted to, I think I'm trying to look ahead for the next 20 years. I know how hard it is to get a building project done in this town or any town. And it's gonna be expensive. And I know we haven't made a final decision because the final decisions rests with the select board. I still think we'd be making a mistake. I am definitely supportive of a new fire station, have always been. I just would like us to take a hard look, and when I see graphics like this, that we need this space, we're still not sure if we actually need that space for a photo. We need it for solar panels, or we need it for geothermal wells. I was very excited when we decided to purchase the property. Still has to be approved at town meeting for another half an acre. I was really hoping we could see some shift in some of using that. It doesn't seem we're really using a lot of that land, and we're just kind of getting rid of our.
The cost of the 3-story versus the 2-story.
And I get we talked about the 3-story and versus 2-story. I still think even at the 2-story, but again, it's hard to see this if it's not at scale or there's no numbers on here. So that being said, if you have any comments now, I know we're not making a final decision right now on that aspect. I don't want to conflate it with the cost of the building, what we're going to town meeting for. I think these are two very separate topics. So I would like to make that very clear. But if you had some.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question and your thorough thinking of this through. I think our assessment, given the decisions that were made in 1987, given the complexity of landform that was created in 1987, maybe responded to the site in 1987, it is very difficult to save that building and to save it in a cost-effective way that would allow the development of everything planned on site. It's not just geo or the PV, it's parking, it's access, it's other vehicles, and allow a new building, a new facility to be built that works with the site once we reconfigure it. That building, as you know, I believe, has two significant levels, right? One is at elevation 50, the other one is at elevation, I forget, it's much higher. And actually, it's elevation 50 and elevation 40, something 42. If the way the parking is laying out, we'd have to put it behind the building. I have to have a 2% slope to get from that parking lot into the building. I cannot get a 2% slope that goes up and then down. And so we'd have to fill in what is currently the basement of the building and remove what is currently the ambulance bay of the building to get just a simple ADA piece, right? So it's a simple accessibility piece. So the implications of that are not insignificant. I agree. The photovoltaic array, maybe it's going to be big enough to be on the outbuilding, and we're going to be able to do that. However, what does net zero then mean? Now we have another building on site, the existing fire station, which, by the way, a building in Orleans would not normally cost this amount, but a public safety building needs to be a Category 4 building. It has to withstand earthquake, wind, snow, all kinds of storm. It's a 24/7 facility. Another building, a DPW facility or another building, doesn't have the same criteria. And so the cost per square foot would be much lower for another facility. But if we are thinking about net zero at this location for this piece of property, are we making that building net zero, or are we avoiding that building? And if we are making it net zero, that's a radical investment, because that building is uninsulated or very lightly insulated. It needs all new windows. The roof's leak. It's filled with hazardous material. So I think we've considered it internally. We've studied it a couple of different ways. The graphics that we are showing are to scale. I know we have that analysis that we've done. It's a hand-drawn thing. I personally did it on my desk. And so we believe the best approach is to remove that facility. Not only, it feels like we would be spending an excessive amount of money to keep that facility. And if we're going to try and make this a net zero component of the area, if the master plan is leading toward a new school at some point, I imagine that's going to be net zero. How would we not make this building net zero? Then the question is, what do we use the building for, right? It becomes it's a multi-tiered, complicated bit of a mess. So I'm happy to try and put this on paper in a graphic and a drawn way for you that's more thorough. But our interpretation at this point is that it's not I don't have any reason to take it down other than trying to save the town money and it being a wise decision to not use that. But that's my current assessment.
Can I continue? Yeah, I get that, and it wouldn't be in the scope of this project of renovating that building and all of that. I mean, that's a decision we would have to make of the future needs of the town. We're not asking you to come up with the decision of what the building would be used for later or any of that. Or even if we wanted to make it net zero. We're not saying that if we kept the building, that would have to be net zero. That's another discussion we would have to have as a board. But moving on for that, but yes, I would like to understand further, but I hear where you're going with this. I hear where everybody seems to be going with this, but I did want to bring it up.
There are cases where some communities feel that a building isn't worth saving. We actually save the building. We did this in Belmont Police.
Well, I've read I don't know if it was your study before for the fire station, and it was in the charge of the last fire station committee that there was supposed to be consideration to save the building and what can we do, and that was going to be studied. Not in this.
I don't think it was on our study, but
not in your. Okay,
yeah.
Then it was on the other KV study. That was one of the things.
So Michael, if I could, just, Ted, it sounds like you're willing to put a memo together. And
For
I
sure.
do think it would be helpful on this topic.
For sure.
In case others are asked. But what I just heard Michael say, we have not addressed at a board in terms of abandoning a building on site. And I think in your memo, you might want to have two tracks. One is that even available to a town? You might want to check with town council. Abandoning a building may put our insurance at risk on this parcel. And it's the same parcel as a new fire rescue facility. So I don't want that risk. You might want to highlight that. Or the other option is, different from what you just heard from my fellow select board member, is roll the cost of having that property insurable and safe into the project cost. Because we own it. If we're leaving it there, I would say personally that we own and responsible for everything on that site. So it only drives up cost, just saying. But I do think in the memo, it would be good to write.
Happy to look at that and study
Thank
that.
you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And then another question, I was looking over the budgets and the preliminary schedule, and I know it's rough, and I know it's preliminary. Could you explain to me, when you say that there's this escalation to midpoint, I'm not sure if I understand that correctly, because I would assume there's, yes, things may escalate before the bid comes in. But once the bid comes in, we're pretty locked, right, with the bid number. How would then it escalate between the bid and the start of construction to the mid-construction?
So that's a cost estimator's philosophical argument all the
Okay.
time. We have some cost estimators that escalate to the start of construction and some that escalate to the midpoint of construction. I prefer to escalate to the midpoint of construction, as I think Rick Pomeroy might, because when a contractor is pursuing a project, electrical contractor, for example, they're looking at the cost of equipment now, but they're also looking at the cost of when they're going to buy the equipment. So if they want to really win the project, they're going to go in with the cost of the equipment now, but they're putting escalation into their bid so that they know where those numbers are going. Chapter 149 and Chapter 149A, Mass General Law, either general construction or construction manager at risk, are set up so that systems will change during construction. So we might specify an air handling unit by train, and it might have 3 ports over here that the pipes are going to go to, and that's the basis of design. The contractor may buy a piece of equipment from Carrier, and the 3 ports are over here, and the electrical contractor has now got to feed it this way, and the plumber has to do this. And so it inevitably turns to a change order. So the system is built for change orders to happen. So those numbers have to be baked into the cost estimate, and that's part of what that's about.
My philosophy, I guess, is different than.
It should, in a way, it should be hard bid. This is the number and that's it. But the system is set
No,
up.
change orders would happen, but however, if there are things that like a unit was switched around, I mean, I would assume that's the GC's responsibility or the
I would love to assume the same,
Yeah, you
Michael.
know, but I appreciate the explanation
Yeah.
on that. I guess in the second one I had was, when I was looking at this, the architect and engineering, DD through construction. I just want the public to know and make sure I understand it. We've already raised the money for that portion.
Correct.
4.5 million that we went to town meeting that is being paid for. That's included in here. So either way, you would take that off of any of these top bids. So I think we have what I'm just saying is we have wiggle room. Because, yes,
I defer to the chair.
I think Ted can speak, but there will be a construction continuation of architect services on exactly what Ted gave as an example.
Right.
If, for example, the train unit gets replaced
I get-
by,
if this is $5.5 million, this is it says it's based in the
percentage.
notes, it's based as the percentage
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
cost.
Right.
Percentage of
Which
the
is
project.
what we just did the article for 4.5 based on 10% of the cost. So are we saying architecture fees are gonna be 20% now?
I wish. No.
And you probably
Okay, but
deserve
everybody in
it.
favor?
You probably deserve it. However, that, another 4.5, 5 million is,
It's not another. It is, I think, and this goes to an earlier point made by a member of the public, what's in the total ball of wax and what's not. There's not I don't think there's another ask for AE fees. The AE fee is established. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but that's been established, and that's part of. And I think when Rick was putting this budget together, this is Rick Pomeroy's budget, he was trying to assess the hard cost and all the development costs, the soft cost. And so he was just putting that package together. The land acquisition, that's all town decision whether those things get included or not. However that budget gets established is a wider discussion.
I was
If
just.
that answers that.
Yeah, it answers that. That we
Yeah.
have a lot more wiggle room here than I thought we
Yes.
did, which is great.
Yeah.
It's good to have. And I think that's all I have right now. And as you know, I think Meth brought it up about comparisons. I don't know if you guys are going to do any more than what you have in here. It has been a call out to me, and I think the public and a few of our committees residents have been doing their own comparisons, which is not the greatest thing to do. And they've been analyzing it themselves and sending that information around. For me, I would rather see the analyzing coming from you, who's actually currently working on projects and is our expert that we have hired to make sure we are falling somewhat in line and educating me on all those little idiosyncrasies versus what a fire station square footage costs versus what a normal building would in the category 4, and then also regarding sub-buildings versus a headquarter station is going to probably have different square footage costs too.
We're tracking, at the moment, we have a couple going out to bid in June. We're tracking probably 5 or 6 other projects that are in the Commonwealth of similar ilk, and some of the numbers per square foot are higher than where we are. So we can report back on that
I think
at some
that's
point.
helpful for
Yeah.
the public because
For sure.
it's a lot of it's coming down to, it's coming down to a dollar conversation.
Yeah.
Where I think, I don't know anybody who doesn't understand the need for this.
Yeah.
And doesn't understand how important this is for today and for the future. But unfortunately, it really comes down to these dollars. I mean, for me, whatever you decide, I like the net zero building. I think it's tough when people look at these renderings. They don't quite, if you're not explained to, a lot of people say, well, you'll see all this solar panels on the roof. And I said, no, you won't see it. These aren't street views.
That's why we show the street views tonight.
Yeah, so it's kind of like.
We're
it looks
working to
like-
hide the equipment, there's a number of things at play there.
Yeah, so, okay. I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the sewer versus septic challenge, because the sewer, I think, is 20 years out on Eldridge Parkway. So in order for it to catch up and sort of time into this project, I don't even know how much of a disruption that would be and what the cost would be. But if you had to go ahead and do a septic system that would have a 20-year life before the sewers ever got to it, is it really something that we want to, is it worthwhile for the town to chase a sewer solution rather than just letting the septic be the way to go?
That's been a comment, that's been a conversation at the building committee, and
We have
not my-
expertise, only because Rich has already answered this question, so it'd be good to say it again.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer it particularly, but I will say we do have options, which is good. We have the septic system option. We got an option via gravity down through the elementary school to go through a property that we would need an easement for and tie into Route 6A. But we also have another option, which is up through Clayton Circle, which is a low-pressure system. So now that we're starting to iron out what the building looks like, where the plumbing network's going to come out of the building, where things are going to work, I've been asking them the last couple of meetings, and I know they're working on it. We're just trying to get to the point. Once we get that elevation schematic, we're going to be able to start looking into those sewer different options and be able to weigh the 3 different options that we have, which includes, the cost of sewer construction, what does future phasing look like, for a gravity system, low pressure system, as well as a septic system. I think to your point, we do have the option of a septic system that has a 20-year, 30-year lifespan, which happens to be the same amount of time frame when sewer would actually get to that area. I think we'd also look at the potential funding sources to fund that. Would it be eligible for SRF or not? And I think those are some of the things we got to look at.
Good, thank you. So, one thing I'm going to test the board to see, and I think it would be helpful for the committee and our architect and team, do we want to vote to adopt what Ted has indicated in one slide, a very simple net zero definition that we would basically say if somebody wants to make a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair, because also it coincides with the Energy and Climate Actions working definition.
So,
Second?
excellent. Is there any further discussion? Just so we know what we're voting on. We are voting on that one slide Ted put up there that basically says what you need to use on site, you produce on site. That's basically what the message is.
Great.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah, just say there's language that needs to be stricken off the charge as well.
No, but I don't think when we have, if I may, Mr. Chair, I don't think when we read the portion of the charge, you got to read the preface of that too. I think we all really need to
We're there.
Okay.
look at the charge, because the preface says we'll do all available or
Right.
ability of. You know, the way we interpret the charge is how we put it together. And
I guess as long as it's going to make the committee and everybody else feel that we're all on the same page, then
All right.
if I may, I
Please.
would like to, as a discussion portion, I mean, I know the chair, and I didn't see it at the last meeting, but I know when he was in here, it said very fuzzy on some of the things on the charge. If there are other things on the charge that are not clear, I think we need to address that as a board.
Not tonight.
Not tonight, and I also think the updates, I'd love to, it's great to see you here. We haven't seen you since the campus study, I think it was, but we baked that in the charge to have, significant updates. I would hope we can schedule some more formal times where this committee can come in, ask if they have, I don't want anything to slow this down. And I think sometimes when I watch the meetings, they're saying, well, then the select board has to weigh in and the select board has to decide. And if that is the case, I don't want to be the body that is slowing down decision-making in the process, if you need it. So
Point.
I would suggest, Mark does great jobs giving us updates. We watch the meetings too. But again, we need to vote on this board as things start moving down the process, because then we won't have these long conversations for months.
Well, I think clearly town meeting is so critical that then we lock in on the conceptual that will be used to finish up, and we'll probably have more updates like that. So I will call for a vote on the definition net zero. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
And now, could I just jump in here and?
Matt, go ahead.
for Concluding, I just wanted to make a request that we use this sort of meeting as the starting point for developing an FAQ sheet, a printed FAQ sheet that can be developed for the use of the website and for town meeting and whatever else, so that so we have answers that are in black and white on paper rather than just a lot of conversation.
Good. So I looked at Mark and Kim.
We've got one started.
Building
and
committee.
We wanted to be able to
I know
utilize this.
Outreach has been a topic of your agenda, so let's work together on that. Great. David, you want to come up? Please.
I'll be quick. We've had several meetings with Ted and his team, and over that time, over the first 3-4 meetings when we were reviewing the site and the options, for what it's worth, the building committee voted, because of the time spent by Ted and the explanations that he brought to us, voted to no longer consider keeping the old fire station. So apparently, this board needs to make that vote as well. And at some point, I don't know if it's appropriate before town meeting or after town meeting, but the less you have on your plate at town meeting, it might be helpful.
Thank you, David. So I think that's really a good wrap right now. I don't see that for action or discussion tonight. Michael would like to be informed with a little bit more data from Ted. But I think to the point you made about town meeting, this upcoming town meeting is really the place that's going to give the voters 2 important articles to act on. Not just the fire rescue article, but also the acquisition of 0.4 acres at Article 16. This brings significant positive benefits to this project. We heard it today in terms of the facility, the layout, the design, all the benefits of direct access. It's a public-facing building with this acquisition. It'll be wonderful. We also have to say, and I wrote this so I read it carefully, we sincerely thank Dr. Chun and Dr. Montoya for their collaboration and partnership as they continue their dental practice. while this project is moving forward. Again, folks might say, why didn't you get this done sooner? Folks, you need a willing seller, you need a willing buyer, and we finally got there. The most important part of this construction funding after Article 16 is Article 17. The voters will set the cost parameters that this team will work through. That is the biggest thing about this. You'll see some concepts, but essentially when you look at any of the 4 boxes, they're all the same. They have a little different orientation, a little different roof. They're essentially the same. They meet the fire rescue members' needs. You can see it in the building layout. They meet our needs as a community. So I think we're going to continue to work to listen from the community. The concepts will turn into reality and detailed design and go forward. But I honestly am amazed at the rapid pace. Look at some of our neighboring communities. They have been spinning their wheels on a police station here, not mentioning in town. We are moving it forward. And what it does, doing it this way, is it is cost effective. It keeps our cost under control by moving this at the pace we are. And hopefully, with the right people around the table and all of you, we're going to ask those questions and keep getting the right answers, because I know we've got the right team for it. So thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it. And Ken, we will get every one of your questions answered. Absolutely. Alice from FinCom, please come on up so we can hear you at a microphone.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions, because the FinCom will be discussing this, and I want to be sure we're really clear. Others may have a couple questions, so we don't have to go back. I had a question regarding the 4 drawings, 4 iterations, and you had the dollar signs. And my question is, you gave us 4, but with your budget, you basically had 2. So you had, if I saw that correctly, you had, 44 to 46 hard costs, and then you had 9 to 11 hard costs. So which of those connects with these?
We think that the budget, we have, the single dollar sign is in the lower budget category, in the 50 million range, and the 2 gables is in the 60 million range. So, right, so, and we
Okay.
didn't price all
I
4.
got it.
Because they're also, the design is not finalized. And I think we were working hard to establish, should it be 2-story, should it be 3-story? There was a different access road over on near OES. There was different site development. 2 weeks ago, we started to work on, maybe 3 now, we started to work on compacting the site. And so that's kind of the other ones fall in between
Yeah,
there.
That's great. You
Yep.
know, I kind of guessed that, but I wanted to be sure we were clear on that, since you had the 4. And then I would like to sort of echo this gentleman's list of additional costs that we should factor in, so that we can be really clear to the public on the total cost. I think, we are in a position where unfortunately we are not going out to bid before we're asking townspeople for the money to get a better sense of what this is. There's a lot of guesswork involved, but we want to try to be as clear. I would like to also echo Michael's statement that I haven't heard one comment from anyone that is questioning whether we need to do this. It's just about, what are the financial parameters that the town can manage in order to move forward with some of the other things they would like to do. So the total cost, including the demolition, hazardous material, just, getting rid of hazardous material, et cetera, that we would like to see those figures as soon as we're possible. And then the other thing I noticed, I'm totally supportive of the net zero. I can't even begin to tell you how important that is for the future. Anybody who's been living just in the last 2 months that runs a gas-powered car or has to put fuel oil in their homes understands how volatile this is. This is a solid solar power is a pretty solid thing. I did notice recently that there's still quite a bit of grant funding in the Commonwealth for businesses as well as private homeowners that want to move forward with renewable energy. And I just wonder if we've considered exploring any of those possibilities for us.
I can answer that.
Great, Kevin.
Included in the scope of both TED as well as our OPM. Mark burned it right in. is to work with the Mass Save Cape Light Compact program right from design. Because when you sign an agreement through those programs now, regardless of if the programs change in 3 years, we will get the incentives.
Yeah.
And they are significant. Ted gave an example of one community that got close to $1 million. We could get significant dollars, but we don't take those to the bank because they don't pay them out until the building's complete.
Right.
And
But-
just to
But
be-
those things, I think, are still in play up until 2032.
Again, if we sign an MOU with Cape Light Compact now, which we'll be doing once town meeting approves this, whatever incentives are on the schedule now will be available to us when it completes. They lock those in queue for you.
It's great, Kevin. And then finally, I really appreciated your comments regarding the necessity for more energy use in a gabled building, roof building, et cetera, et cetera. Those are going to be huge cost savings if we can go with, I think it's fascinating that you call that the net zero building, because they all have potential.
They're all
net
intending to
zero.
be net zero. But we, just to, on the
Thank
Cape
you.
Light Compact today, our engineers were in touch. The Cape Light has been asking and inquiring quite a bit. And just today, there was a response from our mechanical team with Cape Light saying we're going through town meeting process and we're on the heel. So they're working with us
Great.
very well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Awesome job, you guys, particularly David.
May I just ask Ted a question? When we did the cost analysis that we had done with Ilana, didn't we include asbestos remediation, demolition? I mean, what I'm seeing on that list was pretty extensive of all the things that were raised.
I believe we did. It's 44 pages. I didn't
Yeah.
memorize it, but I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're in good shape with that.
Yeah, there was an excessive, no, I wouldn't say excessive, but an extensive list of, components that went into the cost analysis. So, it's not just a thumb suck, as some would say, it's a real in-depth, review.
So to the extent, again, for our final vote, which will be before town meeting and finance committee, to the extent we can have answers to those backed up by Ted and other calcs.
For sure.
Everything from the bond fees down to, the demo, and everything between there. Again, we've got some smart people in this town, as you know.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
all right, great, you guys, really good meeting. And again, keep up the excellent work.
Thank you all very
Yes,
much.
Thank you so much. All right, so I did mention to Adam just a few minutes ago, I'm going to shift our agenda around to do the pre-town meeting run-through. That would include our town clerk. I saw Kelly Darling here, and the town moderator is here. As you saw, town council was on, but she had a conflict and had to leave, so we will do any follow-up. I'll look at Kim and Mark if things come up with.
I know, Kelly, she's been here
Yes, she was right back there, yeah.
the whole time.
So,
Call her out again.
yeah. Mr. Moderator, welcome.
I tried to get David to stay, but he's leaving.
He's got his hands full, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Good to see you both. This is our pre-town meeting walkthrough for folks that we're segueing from fire rescue building project to an exciting, and John, I'll tell you what I think will be the best town meeting. I'm saying it now, best town meeting.
I appreciate the hope.
So Kim, Mark, how would you like to flow?
We had a preliminary meeting a few days back that did include town council, just so that you know. We've actually already met and gone through, but these guys can talk to you about their schematics and plans.
I mean,
Okay.
I've done my part of this meeting. I don't know. I don't know. Beyond this is just, How would you like to proceed?
Right.
It's
Do you wanna
really
go through
your
the
interaction with
articles?
the
What
moderator
would
and
you-
the-
Let's start with setup, only
Okay.
because I think you'll find, again, it's your meeting. So again, we're there,
Town meeting is not this.
it's at the town meeting.
Just making sure that's
When
not.
we go into that room, you run the show. So what I understand is there'll be some improved presentations available for screen. There was a question this afternoon during a workshop, could we get a few more screens set up? So that's still an open item. We're
gonna work on
see
that,
if we
see what
can.
we can do.
It'd be very difficult.
I did hear, so I don't know if town manager and assistant know, are we going to or not have a clock?
We've purchased a clock, a large
I
clock.
wanted to use the shot clock from the
Why
kids'
not?
basketball game. So, like,
Exactly.
a wicked loud buzzer, but
So
got
anyway,
overruled.
again,
So that'll be a change.
that will be new.
It'll help both the moderator and the public understand their time
Right.
that they have to
Yep.
speak.
Yep.
Right. We were going to have, when the select board reads, whichever ones you decide to read, we're going to have you read as you do, but then also say how you voted. And then if you forget, John will say to the chair, how did you vote? And then he will call on the finance committee chair in the same way, so that we have a process for each one about recognizing the votes of those boards.
Maybe I'm gonna talk to Ryan Bray after, because I think he usually does a pre-meeting article about getting everybody there before 6 o'clock. If you're in line at 5 or 6 o'clock, you're not gonna, 5 of 6, you're not gonna be there by the, you're not gonna be in the building, and I have to start at 6. We have enough
I
articles.
agree.
that-
That was on my list of things
Yeah.
for tonight.
Just-
was
just to let
first
people
10
know.
or 15 minutes of the agenda, of the warrant, are just housekeeping.
Right, and I think it's easy to start then, but I also think people, if you want to be voting at 6 o'clock, you need to be there probably at 5:30.
Right.
So that's just something we got to make sure everybody knows.
I'll take responsibility for that, because I was outside the building when we were going to start the last meeting, and the line was so long, and there were a number of people that were, differently abled trying to access the building. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some extra time. I mean, this meeting is a little bit different in the sense that we're going to be starting with a really large consent calendar. But, so we might get to the meat quicker.
There were some big votes early, so
Yeah.
it was important to kind of hold it. I think we held it for 15 minutes.
Right.
I would say 12. Some of my friends that were heckling me in the front would say 15. But there's two things to that. One, get started on time, and two, just remind people that, you do have 5 minutes to speak under the charter, but let's try not to celebrate it.
Right.
If you can hold a room full of people that aren't really interested in what you're saying for more than 2 minutes, you're one of the best speakers in the world. Like literally, no one can do it. So it's very short. Some of the best points that were made, and some points that I know you guys didn't like necessarily, were 1, 2, 3, revert back to the first point, sit down, 1 minute and 30 seconds. And everybody started keying off that one thing, because remember, it's short, it's sweet. So like practice at home, keep it under 2 minutes, unless you're, Jimmy Valvano or something. But
Point, Neff.
I would agree with you with one exception, and that is, if the people speak to the article, then that timing is right. But my opinion is that we've let people just sort of go off in whatever tangent they want to follow, and I don't think they should be entitled to do that.
yeah, no, I think we do need to remind people of that. There are some that, what is a tangent and what is directly related.
That's your job.
Yes.
No, I understand that. I think the first person I cut off was related to me, so I think that's, and then ironically enough, someone else gave the other side to the non-point.
Right.
And you're just sitting there, just like, I get it. It kills the discussion, though. It keeps going, because if 40 people speak for 5 minutes, we're going to be there a while. So I think you'd be hard-pressed to find 20 different opinions or 15 different opinions on any article. And when 10, 15 people stand up, I know we want to be heard, but if you hear someone say what you're thinking or say what you said, it's been said. I think that needs to be pointed out too. We don't
Yes,
need to
I totally
be
agree.
the same point.
Right.
And again, it's 1, 2, 3. like, just if you can keep it to 1 minute and 30 seconds, I might not catch you on the fact that you're saying the same thing, because it's quick enough. But people get a point across in a short amount of time are effective, and people that don't are not.
That's me.
So is there interest in going through each article, or?
To you. I mean,
We did a workshop this afternoon.
I think it's difficult without Karis. I think a lot of our questions were around how the citizens petitions get handled, since they're both not technically, out of order, or there isn't something to vote on besides that. And so I think we'd rather have her speak to that, right? She will be there to guide that vote, so that, if there's any questions about that. I just wanted to say the same thing about sort of the side responses to people. Like, one of the challenges is because of the 3 microphones, that sometimes they're taken out of order, right? Or some people get skipped because, and then someone calls the question and it really should have been so-and-so, and then we let them go. I just wonder if there's a better way to do that, or, or limit it to like 2 people at the microphone at a time, or something for safety so that it's more fair.
I watch who's getting up, and I do try to keep it in the order that they got up. You'll notice I'll skip back, so it looks like I'm skipping over someone. I'm not skipping over that, like 1, 2, 3. I'm skipping the person here that stood up after this person that's here,
Right.
is what I'm trying to do. Granted, again, if the line's that long, your point has probably already been made.
Right.
Just, by nature of, you run out of points. On the articles, I'm happy to address them. We did discuss it with the attorney, and I think that specifically to 35, it's a moot article, that it's already in the budget.
Right.
So I think that, and the person that proposed it, I think, is happy with that.
Just in case people are wondering, he's talking about the override for the COA
The
position.
COA assistant director is already in the budget, so it's a moot article. I'd ask that I'll deal with it. The 34, I haven't really decided how we're gonna do that. Town meeting is not a polling place, we're not a polling company. So the fact that it's outside of the scope of what we can even authorize at town meeting. So maybe, I'm debating whether or not we should just, let him read it. There's the point, and we can't do anything about it. We need to table this indefinitely, but I'll deal with that later. But
And one thing-
town council can elaborate on that, but.
Right. And one thing, only because that petitioner did speak to us in terms of his intent, he also did ask if we had any revenue sources he could suggest to amend the operating budget to support the software he thinks we want to put in place. So be prepared for, I'm looking at both town clerk and you, Mr. Moderator, to probably have an amendment that, as you know, he should hopefully talk to you in advance, have it in writing, but
The amendment, not even probably, the amendments need to be given before a town meeting, and they need to be looked at. Amendments given to us at town meeting, a lot of times, it's very easy to be outside the scope, very easy. And if you give me a week, I can help. But if you're giving it to me on the fly, and you're outside the scope and it's written, it's too late. So let's not, that again, I understand the point, and I understand amendments and the value of amendments that need to be given beforehand, but you're a little bit wasting everybody's time at that point.
I don't know
We
if I
need to try to
shared that with
avoid
all of you, but if you remember, Mr. Coonahan came up and I said, anything else, you want to share, let us know. But he sent me an email the next day saying, what funding source could I take this out of the budget? And I said, I really don't have an answer for you. And that's all I said to him. So, but it may come up.
Can I just ask, John, do you have somebody that's going to ask to indefinitely postpone the COA article?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna name names, but
No names
Recognizable.
necessary.
So I think, the other thing we heard when we did our workshop this afternoon was on the consent agenda. Given that we've got, 14 articles, maybe you might say in advance, any one of these articles, if you want to pull them out, you're welcome to do so, because again, we're trying to make the meeting efficient and move along.
5 people? five people need to do.
5 voters would need to,
Fine, right?
They're, before the meeting, they have to provide it in writing, and then during it, it's just verbally.
But please don't. Please just come, if you can find 5 friends before the meeting.
yes.
If you truly want to remove one of the
Yeah.
consent agendas. But it's not, the consent agenda is not trying to push things through so that no one looks at them. They're things that need to be
Right.
consented to. They're not, this is not.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you just explain that for the public who's watching?
Probably not.
Okay. What I'd like to explain is that Articles 1 through 14 are going to be read at one time and voted at one time. So that's done at 6:03.
Hopefully, that's
right?
the
I mean,
idea.
logically, so they really got to get there.
And
If they're interested in anything between 1 and 14,
If
I'm just trying to
yes.
think. I don't want people showing up at
If you want,
6:04
if
and
you
going.
think, if you think one of the articles between 1 and 14 are important, and need to be voted on its own, then you can get 5 other voters in writing to petition to remove that from the consent agenda, and they'll be voted as an article on its own. So say you don't like Article 10, whatever it is. I don't know what Article 10 is. Well, the consent agenda would, and you get those 5 voters, the consent agenda would be 1 through 9 and 11 through 14. And
That's one vote.
10 would be that's one vote.
And that's-
And 10 would be a vote on its own.
So
Whatever,
maybe it's
whatever that is.
6:05, but well, I guess I'm trying to help with making
Well,
sure people
6:05,
understand it's.
but I assume if you're removing it from the consent agenda, you want to discuss it. So 6:05 is
Maybe it's not exactly.
Let's not do it.
But I'd like to see people hopefully there before with their clickers, so everybody gets a chance, is the whole point of this, is that.
No, I think the 6 o'clock point is that you need to be there well before 6 o'clock. Vote at 6 o'clock.
Right.
We're there at 5. Kelly's there at 5.
Yeah, I would like to just jump in quickly and say, we opened the doors are open earlier even for last minute questions by the public, but we're ready to check people in by 5 PM. So if you get there between 5 and 5:30, you'll stroll right in, get your clicker and sit down. We have
Good seat,
8
too.
check-in stations at least. We have, try to put some of our best people on the front counter there to check you in. We can't check we can't check in 300 people in 10 minutes at 10 of 6. It's just, they're going to be waiting outside. There's no way to make that happen. I can't have one check-in person for each person showing up to vote. So they have to spread out a little bit or come earlier so we can get you in by start time.
So how do we incentivize early arrivals?
Well-
Jim knows what I'm thinking.
Kevin always wants food to be added, and honestly, I've taken up that charge on Wednesday meetings, but I think the other thing is we're there, the staff is there at 5. We've started going early, right? It's one of the additional dates we've added.
4 o'clock.
We're there at 4 o'clock, to answer questions, any questions. We have like little displays, they can talk about so like, that's incentive. The other thing I wanted to say, though I haven't sent the official email out, is that we're planning at the beginning of the meeting to recognize the police department, the fire department, and the DPW for their work during the blizzard. And so they will come in and the town will thank them, and then they will go out. So there will be a bit of ceremony for a couple of minutes in the beginning. Just haven't got around to sending that email yet, but I'm on it. I mean, they're not required to attend. We should also say they're going to be honored at a Firebirds game on June 30th, so we're working on a lot of ways. But anyway, sorry.
Back to town meeting.
Maybe just, Kelly, do you want to talk about what we're doing to prepare for overflow a little bit?
So I'm going to confirm the numbers with building department and the fire department. But we're going to set up the main gym, going to ask the DPW to provide more chairs. So we have more rows. Try to maximize the space as we've done before. I want to follow up on my numbers because my maximum layout was from 2013. So I'd like to just confirm that we're still within that. But basically, it looks like we can fit over 800 voters in the main gym. And then by using the smaller gym, anywhere from 200 to 300 for that. I have ordered 1,000 clickers.
Awesome.
They will be fully staffed to facilitate that.
It'd be great to have a turnout like that, really, please.
If somebody were to come early, like when you guys first get there, can they get a clicker and leave? And then come back at 6?
Yeah.
Shouldn't leave the property with the clicker. I mean, if they want to go outside.
I'm just wondering, like,
gotta
if
pay for that.
somebody's like getting out of work, stop, get the clicker, go home, feed the kids, do whatever they need to do, and then come back to the town meeting,
So
be able to get in?
technically, yes, but what they're still gonna get caught in a jam at the door at
Coming back.
10 minutes of 6 coming back. And I'd really prefer people don't take the clickers home. I've had to chase people down every town meeting. We have to follow up with someone, which is why we link the name to the clicker, not for the vote, but so that we can get the clicker and not have to pay for it.
How about this? If someone arrives at 5 o'clock to get their clicker and they legitimately get it and they come in the room, but they gotta run home to let out the dog, they can give it to any one of us who will be there for that hour, and we will hold on to it. We'll all be there, and we will make sure we remember whose we have in our hands. So for those
sticky note.
people who need that, we will help them. How about that?
One of
We
the,
can be trusted.
the
with
assistant town
clickers.
clerk or the town clerk or the principal clerk for my office is gonna be there as well. So one of us
And then
can,
Kelly will verify that we gave them back so that we aren't voting ourselves, okay?
We'll also be watching Mark when he tries to leave early.
Absolutely.
Will there be also, another reason to come early is if you have childcare?
Here we go.
You get your kids settled?
Child
My
care.
kids just run around the gym till about 5:45.
Tracks.
If there's any balls out, we'll yeah, I'm running around chasing them, is what it is.
what time would the childcare be starting? I think that's a factor too, if we could
I
get
don't
that
know,
to
I'll find
start.
out. We'll text Tom, keep talking, and I'll let you know.
Okay, so we could start that at like 5:15, maybe a little bit earlier. That might help people who do have children try to.
I mean, we had so few people come between 4 and 4:50. I mean, no one, we really encourage people to come out early.
If they start 30 minutes early, like
Yeah.
5:30, I think that'd be fine.
Really helpful.
I don't know when it started. I just told my kids to run it around until I saw someone in there.
So the other thing is with using the clickers, I might as well keep
Get out of
talking.
here, we don't know.
So we will have a section for non-voters to sit. However, if someone comes with a voter, someone's bringing their parent or they bringing their 16-year-old child and they're going to sit with them, that's fine because of the clicker system. Doesn't necessarily have to be all voters. I like to save the main areas for the voters and try to keep the non-voters to one section. However, it's not an issue if someone needs to sit with someone, just as a note of interest.
Nice.
How about read out the,
Article 24. Just the point, just to clarify for people if it looks weird, odd in the book.
Right.
Article 24 is actually 6 separate motions. So it'll read as 6 different articles, even though it's just one.
24-1, 24-2.
They'll read each motion, it'll be treated as a separate vote, just so people are aware that when it gets to that, if anybody's confused, it's 24 times 6. So
Right.
there's 24-1, 24-2, 24-3 through 6.
Never let it be said, we don't try new things.
No.
We're trying to do this to avoid that.
Yeah, I think wasn't this because when they were lumped
Exactly.
together, there was issue of,
Yes, and we need some different vote quantums,
Right.
right?
yes.
Yeah, that was part of it.
yeah, I think that
Some
was, yes, oh, sorry, because when some of them were in the CIP and some weren't,
Right.
then you ended up having to have the full amount of the vote
I want
versus.
to hold up
50-50.
all of the ones that were in it before.
Sorry, I just thought I'd point that
No,
out. I'm going through my notes that are.
Go through the numbers.
Four
Are
and
there any others that
poorly
pop
written.
up that we can help you with, Mr. Moderator, in your meeting?
No, I think those were, that was the main one, just because it's 24 is odd. The consent agenda, just to remind people that it goes quickly. If you are against it, you really need to be there early. If you're against one of the items and want to remove it, or for it in a different way and want to remove it for some reason.
And
And then 34 and 35 will be dealt with on the floor unless someone wants to reach out to me with an amendment, or if you have an amendment to any of the articles, I'd appreciate seeing it so we can review it and determine whether or not it's within the scope of the article.
And council will be there early as well. I'm excited to have her play a larger role potentially in the, whatever you need to be, right? So that we have somebody right there that we can refer to that can help us stay on track.
So I think we got the flow, we've got logistics.
Want me to read out the
Please.
engagement events and opportunities for people?
Absolutely.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
I can make a mention on that. I think you mentioned it earlier, but that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw this in here. And we really, if anybody's watching, because this is the first one that's on that list, and we didn't have a lot of people here to engage that isn't normally here. So if you have questions, and you know people who are going to have questions, and there's always a certain group of people and new ones that get up and ask questions. I know people want to use the time on the floor and ask their questions, and that's their right, and it's town meeting, and they should if they want to. But it's always helpful to get more information and ask some of these questions before, just for them and it's also helpful to the whole community. So the way we present the article, we can maybe address that at the time. So I think it's fantastic you're doing this. You're touching on all the key places, and I really hope people engage and they come to that. You know, I think it's going to make a stronger town meeting, and it's stronger for everybody.
So Mark, you might want to do the rundown of the events
But
that,
I just got the answer from Tom about the childcare.
Go ahead.
So, he said drop-off begins half an hour before town meeting starts, and they have to register in advance, and it opens on April 27th. So that's 5:30, register in advance. So if you certainly are welcome in the building earlier with children. We'll accommodate. Yes, register online, please, so they can get a head count. I don't think there's a limit. I think they just want to get an idea of what they're going to be dealing with.
great. So the opportunities to,
So we have the following engagement events. Today we had the town meeting article workshop from 3 to 5. The next opportunity is April 25th, which is a Saturday, at the fire rescue station from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. To discuss the new fire rescue station project with Chief Deering, with Ted Galante and Rick Pomeroy, as well as other staff. On May 5th, we have the first town meeting article open house, which will be here at Town Hall from 5 to 6:30 p.m. May 7th, we'll have another town meeting article open house at the Snow Library from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. May 8th, we'll have another town meeting article open house at the Senior Center from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then on town meeting day, May 11th, we will have, staff will be available at the Nauset Middle School gym from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And as always, feel free to stop by the town manager's office or reach out to us for any questions.
and embedded in the back of the warrant is the reminder about an annual town election, Madam Clerk, on May 19th. Really important to, if you've done your duty at town meeting, there are a few ballot questions that also need your vote.
Right.
So,
And offices,
and offices.
no contested races, but still, we do like to get votes on those.
And time for that is
9 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have sent out early voting applications to all voters. We have well over 1,000 have been returned with requests
for mail-in.
for mail-in.
Nice.
Even a little bit more, I think, at this point. Jen and Bethany have been keeping up on them very well. So
You'll still be doing early voting?
we'll be doing early voting 2 weeks before, so office hours 2 weeks before. The ballots will get mailed out probably the last week in April. And I know town meeting warrants are being printed. Those should be available maybe the end of next week.
Yeah, we're hoping the end of next week, if not early the following week. But
Nice.
they're on the website, and we're doing our best to provide them if people ask.
Great.
We can help with that too in my office if people desperately need one.
Awesome. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Town Clerk.
I just wanted to say we have the best town clerk.
We do.
We do.
really do. Yes. Mike, are you going to?
I don't get to see you enough, but we're always happy when we do. I never worry about any of the logistics, ever.
Thank you. Appreciate
I just felt a little bit of like defensiveness of like 300, that part about 300. At no point has anyone ever considered that it was anything due to some sort of flaw in your system.
it frustrates me because I'm like, oh gosh,
Yes. No, that is totally logistical timing on our part, never on
no,
yours.
it's human nature. We all think, oh, well, I'll just get there for quarter of. That's fine. 15 minutes to get in. But you know, when we've had such popular town meetings, I mean, our town meeting, the November was 616 people. It's amazing for a special town meeting.
Good.
You're parking back of the lot at 6.
Yeah, it's a bit of a walk, yeah.
You're walking
Bit
up
of
to
a
the
walk
front,
and-
you're getting into the line at,
Yeah.
5:52.
I mean, the human nature, I would probably do the same thing, but unfortunately, you might miss something if you do that. So we do need to try to get people in a little earlier.
You had something else, Mike?
Yeah, I appreciate you put in the preamble. I know you saw it on page
Me?
2, and you'll read that.
I can.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think we are almost there. Again, thanks, everybody.
Less than a month to go.
It'll be the best town meeting, John.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
No pressure.
We're all counting on you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, until November.
Oh, God, please.
Don't even.
You were not supposed to say that, Kelly. Don't think about November.
November.
Yeah.
It's here to help.
All right. Long in the wings. Adam, Finkel, Nate, come on up. Sorry, guys.
I do have a question about when the board is going to decide who is saying what. And my recommendation would be that Andrea has the closing article, that's all.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Correct, so I'm just saying, if you have thoughts about it, I was just suggesting that, so.
How about this? If any of us are burning to make the motion and stand up there and be ready to maybe say a few words of support for an article, just send your notes to Kim and Mark directly. I'd be rather putting myself in the way of progress if I said I would call them together. I just don't have time these days.
I put a tentative list together. I can share it with you, but it certainly is your call, so. I'll send it out.
Do that.
You could decide.
All right.
Okay.
Nate, Stacy, Adam, again, thanks for your patience.
my God.
As you know, we had fire rescue, town meeting, but we're here.
Absolutely.
Gaycott Beach,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you for the patience.
Yeah, we'll try to respect your time as well tonight and be brief.
Give us the highlights, only because
Of course.
we know you've done a lot on this and documented incredible progress and community involvement, which I'm surprised a few people aren't here. There was one individual on Gaycott Beach Road, I thought he would be here.
I reached out and let him know when the meeting was, just to make sure that, he didn't miss that.
So intro and,
Yeah, not much of an intro. Just back in 2024, town appropriated funding to look into, a resiliency plan for Skakit Beach. Town contracted Woods Hole Group. Adam Finkel's here tonight to give you a summary of the report that he's provided with us, and I think we have a solid plan moving forward. With that, Adam, take it away.
sounds good.
All right. I appreciate it, Nate. Thanks, and thanks everyone for hanging in there. I'll try to keep it brief this evening. And I was impressed with the efficiency of that last agenda item, so, all right. So my name's Adam Finkel. I'm a senior coastal scientist with Woods Hole Group, and I've been working with Nate and the town of Orleans for a little over 10 years now. We first started working together when we were coming up with a plan for Nauset Beach. In response to some of the impacts that were experienced out there. And it's been interesting to see that project come to fruition. And as a credit to the town, it's become a model for the Sandy Neck Phased Retreat, which is just being completed over the next couple of weeks, shifting assets out of harm's way.
And just a little tidbit.
Sure.
A few of us have been around long enough to know that the town did have the foresight to do a number of things. One is the acquisition of what we called the Eubler lot area that's now pavement, and it shows how when we use your expertise, staff have insight into timing, and I can remember at the Florida Town meeting,
Planning.
is this going to last? And it's, as you pointed out, this has now lasted 10 years. So you think the investment, the grant we got from CZM, the state, I mean, to your point about being a model, it's like every time we go down there, you can see it's working. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can remember when we were proposing to put together a management plan for Nauset Beach, and there was some questions about why do we need to do this?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So tonight, I'm gonna walk the group through the following agenda. So we'll talk a little bit about the current risk to the sites and some of the lessons learned from other similar sites in nearby towns. I'll give you a quick overview of our scope of work. Discuss some of the conceptual alternatives that were developed for the site. So nothing's been decided, but we just want to start circulating some of those ideas. and solicit your feedback and talk through some of the recommendations that we feel strongly about coming out of this assessment. Our project working group included folks from the town of Orleans, so Rich and Nate were really kind of central to keeping us honest and moving forward, and then our Woods Hole Group project team as well, and Stacy as well. So thinking about some of the current risks to the site, so everyone's familiar with Skakit Beach. We talk about Nauset Beach as being the crown jewel, but I would say that Skakit is a very, well, I don't want to pick sides, is another incredible asset to the town. But we also know that the parking area, the facilities that are located there, and the infrastructure is threatened by storm-induced flooding, erosion of the beach and dune. Think about the bite that occurs right at the edge of pavement after some of the bigger storm events. And then it's not too soon to start thinking about some of the sea level rise induced impacts in that location. I think a real kind of central theme of this planning process is trying to avoid a situation where the town is experiencing repetitive losses in that location. And I do think that some of the alternatives that we've come up with help to address that. And so again, kind of that proactive planning to address the impacts and ultimately improve the long-term resilience of the site so it continues to be a place that people can go and enjoy and access well into the future. That planning approach is really consistent. Not only the planning approach, but the risks and the planning approach are consistent with actions that have been taken in other locations. We just talked briefly about Nauset Beach. The figures that are shown at the right side of the slide are Breakwater Beach, right next to the Brewster store in neighboring Brewster. And if you look at the figures in a clockwise manner from the top left, you can see just how close their parking area was to the edge. There was repetitive losses occurring in that location. Top right, you can see the phased retreat project that was implemented in that location and restoration of dune while maintaining public access to the shore. And the figure at the bottom is just a couple of years post-construction with a fully restored dune. So just providing another regional example of this type of planning and resilience in action. So our scope of work included field data collection and site survey, so basically an update to existing conditions in this location. And that was really central to trying to advance the development of alternatives for the site, and then if the town chooses to move forward with any actions in this location, any future permits. We also conducted a coastal processes analysis to better understand what's impacting the site now and what might be impacting the site in the future. Like I mentioned, we developed a suite of conceptual alternatives, prepared a final report, which was a draft of which was in the packet this evening, and hosted 2 public meetings to solicit feedback. And this is all really to try to ensure that we're able to maintain public access to the shore in this location, improve the resilience of the shore to present and future storms, and restore coastal habitat. There's also a perennial stormwater issue where stormwater collects and then discharges down Skakit Beach Road and spills out onto the beach. And we've heard repeatedly, both from town staff and from residents who participated in public meetings, that it would be great if that could be addressed as a part of this process. So just a very quick snippet. So as a part of that data collection process and update of existing conditions, we conducted a site survey and developed new existing conditions plans shown there at left. Those are ready to be utilized by the town for either ongoing management at the site or potentially some future action. And then at right, we've got a resource area delineation. So delineating out the coastal dune shown in orange, from the beach in tan, from the flats in blue, and then the associated fringing salt marsh. And that's kind of critical when you transition from just planning to actually designing and speaking with the regulatory community about what might be possible at the site. I only have a couple of technical slides, and I'm going to keep them high level, and we'll move through them 1 minute at a time. But our coastal processes analysis included 3 components. The first was a shoreline change evaluation, and that looked at the rates of erosion or accretion. Some shorelines accrete, some erode, over the course of time. And the long-term trends that we saw at Skakit Beach, if you look at the orange boxes in the figures at the left, the top is the long-term rates of change, and the bottom is the short-term rates of change. And those white lines are representative of transects across the beach where we calculated those rates. And if you take them and you average them for the Skakit Beach site, the area shown in orange, the long-term rate going all the way back to the 1850s, that shoreline's losing almost 3 feet per year. But then when we look at the short-term rate, this almost runs contrary to what we're seeing at most other beaches on Cape Cod. That rate has slowed. And I think our key takeaway from this analysis, we had to try to think about why we're seeing that dampened rate of change in the near term. And really, I think it comes down to the town's current management strategy, which includes stockpiling the wind-driven sand and placing it back on the beach. And then during larger storm events, placing up to 2,000 cubic yards of material on the beach to help make up for that loss. And that has really resulted in Nate and his team being able to hold the line in that location. And I think without that maintenance, it's likely that the rates of change would resemble that long-term trend and would be accelerating more quickly and putting the infrastructure at risk.
Could I hold you for a second? Only
Sure.
because I know in Pleasant Bay, we see a lot of nourishment travels.
Mhm.
You can tell where it goes. Do you think some of what is happening through the nourishment is actually staying in the beachfront area? Because, I mean, it has historically been the family beach because there's such a wonderful, long shoal there. And it just, is that helping this change?
Yeah, so I know that the town is engaged with Center for Coastal Studies and CZM kind of looking at regional sediment transport.
Right.
And I think in this location, it's more likely that the sand is shifting onshore and offshore, creating that shoal that you've discussed, rather than shifting along shore in either direction. And honestly, this beach is more resilient than many because of 2 things. One is the Brewster Flats and that nourishment that ends up on the flats. And the second thing is some of the naturally occurring elevations that we observed in the parking lot. It's a lot higher than a lot of other beaches.
Can I ask a question? Is there, this year, for example, we had significant icing in the bay, and we have over the past few years, at times when there was significant icing on the bay. Is that a positive influence in terms of helping to retain sand at the beach? Because the beach is basically covered, flats are covered, so that when you have those strong northwest winds that are driving the movement, the migration of sand with the water flow, if the ice is there, is that helpful to us when we have those icy winters?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I was asking myself the same thing out on the flats this winter, and I can't speak to what's happening under the ice, but I can say that the majority of the icing, things really locked up after the blizzard and really started to stack up against the shore. And what I can say about the ice is it, to my eye, almost acted like sloping rock revetment along a really long section of the bayside shoreline. And so I can't speak to how it impacted the sand under the ice, but I know that once things came in, froze, and locked up, it offered quite a bit of shoreline protection.
I was just wondering if I could just, aside from that too, again, you just kind of answered it, well, you don't know what's going on under the ice. I was wondering if it's like the old days when the Reynolds boys would go out there with a front end loader and scoop up sand from the flats at low tide and bring it back to the beach. I was wondering if, as the tidal flow moving the ice pack acted like a plow and pushed sand up onto the beach with the incoming tide and the ice pushing it up in there, if that was happening. But doesn't sound like we know that or not.
I don't know with a certainty, but from walking the beaches after ice out, it does seem like things stabilize. So if it had plowed sand up, it does seem like the subsequent tides redistribute it pretty effectively.
So it's bad for Rock Harbor, but it's good for Skaken. Yes.
We didn't see the wind this winter.
Yeah.
You know, we had some events, but not long-term wind events.
Yeah, so the next component of the coastal processes analysis was looking at flood vulnerability. So at first we were looking at erosion. This is flood vulnerability. And it considers if or when a location will flood and under what conditions. And we leveraged the Massachusetts Coast Flood Risk Model. And just walking you through the figures, the one at the top left shows in those three different colored blue lines where we expect mean high water, so high tide, to be in 2030, 50, and 70 under the current sea level rise projection. So what you notice is sea level rise and the high tide line just starts creeping up a little higher on the beach. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we're planning for is how can we maintain as much high tide beach as possible, because that's where people are kind of squeezed to recreate when they can't be all the way out on the flats. So we did notice that future mean high water, high tide does encroach on the beach. And then the three figures across the bottom look at flood exposure during coastal storms. At the left is 2030, then 50, and then 2070. And if we think about the long-term trends, the future high tides aren't impacting the beach and the beach parking area, but the future storms start to. And they start to somewhere between 2030 and 50 with greater regularity, so in the next 20 years or so. All of that said, we were really surprised that the assets in the parking lot remain relatively resilient due to the naturally high elevations. A lot of our beaches are at around elevation 0. Skakit Beach is at elevation 12 to 16.
Wow.
The parking lot and the buildings. That's a substantial difference. So it's not without risk, but in the very near term, it's less vulnerable than some other sites on Cape Cod. And that's the point I want to get across. That's not to say that last point, that the road
Can you get there?
further landward isn't flooded,
Right.
but the beach itself remains resilient in the near term. And then this last figure gets at Mr. Matheson's question regarding where does the sand go? And so the last thing that we did, we ran a couple of simulated storms at the beach to determine how the beach erodes, and if it erodes, where does the sand end up? And the figure at the top left shows what the beach profile looks like before and after a major storm event. And I'm going to keep speaking up and step away from the mic. What you see in tan is the existing beach profile that we surveyed. What you see in red is about a 5-foot bite taken out of the beach right at the edge of parking following a coastal storm. And what you see in blue is that storm water level. So we see sand being bitten off of the edge of parking and redistributed down further on the flats, just like Mr. Matheson suggested. And that's also illustrated in the figure at the bottom left. Erosion in red directly seaward of the pavement or potentially into the pavement, and then the green where the sand accretes lower down on the beach and out onto the flats. So I think that the key takeaway from this is as we continue to experience storms, it's important to continue investing in nourishment to make up for those bites. I know I keep saying that the landward assets remain resilient, but they are still at risk of undermining, and they will become more at risk of undermining as we get further out into the future. And so in the future, at some point, it may be important to consider or at least have a conversation about what do you want to get out of the way. So the project team came together once we had the coastal processes analysis done, and we received feedback both in advance of developing the alternatives, and then we presented drafts to citizens, and then finalized based on feedback. And we really tried to develop these within the spirit of what we were hearing from both town officials and residents. We came up with 4 alternatives, and it's a spectrum all the way from maintaining the status quo all the way up to relocating some assets out of harm's way. There's public comments included at Wright. They're included in the report as well. And we did have pretty robust public engagement during both of the planned meetings. Getting into the alternatives, the first one is shown here. This maintains the town's current management strategy at the site. And earlier on, I was going to have Nate speak to that. Did you want to give a couple high-level points of the town's current management strategy in this location, Nate?
Sure. Presently, I have permits to nourish the beach up to 2,000 cubic yards annually prior to May 1 with the horseshoe crab time of year restriction. So it's just about this time of year where I'll start looking at the profile of that beach and trying to figure out how much sand I need to, protect our infrastructure and our parking lot. What I try to do is to retain as much sand that, our biggest enemy at Skagit Beach, in my opinion, is wind-blown sand, right? It's a funnel. If you look offshore, you're going to see those salt marshes that kind of have more of a barrier east to west, and then we have that open area in front of the beach. The wind comes funneling up there and blows it up into the parking lot and down the road. So we have a pretty good routine now with the DPW to scrape the road and stockpile it in the corner of the parking lot. I have a permit to pull upland sand, which needs to be compatible for beach nourishment as far as the DEP is concerned. There's significant benefit to using upland source. I try not to, certainly because it takes a while to bleach out, and it looks like brown sugar when you bring it in. The spectrum of coarse to fines, the extremely fine sand will stick to your feet and go into the car with you, unlike standard beach sand at Nauset or at Skagit. And then the coarse sediment can look almost gravelly. But let me tell you, the reason, in my opinion, why we have less of an erosion situation at Skagit is because of that coarse material. That's the stuff that sticks around and locks in on the beach. So when you go down to that beach this time of year, it's not going to be the Skagit Beach you're familiar with in July, because the only thing left is the coarse sediments. But that's actually why we aren't crumbling into the bay like other locations.
Can I ask you a question for Nate? So Nate, question for you, because you just alluded to the fact that it's like a funnel there in between the marsh grass and that area, and you're able to capture that sand. So one of the things I've thought about and never had a chance really to ask you about was when we did the reconstruction and retreat project at Nauset Beach. One of the things that introduced really was a dune across the whole length, north to south of the parking lot, separating the beach from the parking lot, with a few limited points of access that were clearly delineated and have walkways over there so that you minimize the amount of wind-driven erosion or even storm northeasters coming through there. Here, the whole expanse of the parking lot, essentially, a large portion of it is completely exposed. I mean, people come and go from their cars anywhere along that stretch of the parking lot in between the bathhouse and the snack shack. And so, would it be possible for us to build a barrier dune across there with a few limited access points that would then minimize the amount of sand that was going to get blown through there and funneled through there and taken away when we have these winter storms?
I should have hired you to write the report, Mark. We're going to get there.
Okay, sorry. I haven't had a chance to read the report yet, so.
It's coming.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's a great question, and thanks for that. And I think that one thing that we kind of were charged with as a part of this process is reviewing the current management strategy. And I think that in reviewing it and considering the impacts and considering what Nate's kind of contending with in this location, it's largely sound, and it's doing a good job of holding the line. There are a couple of optional components that we threw in here. One is a red line that runs right along the seaward edge of parking. And you'll notice that this hatched white line comes out seaward of the parking area. That's the FEMA flood extents. So a lot of the parking area is just landward of that, and we do think it would be feasible to potentially get a timber knee wall installed along the edge of parking to try to retain some of that wind-driven sediment and minimize the maintenance, keep it on the beach. The other things that we have included here is optional stormwater improvements. So even without a larger project in this location, we do think that there would be benefits to potentially investing in some sort of backstop for that wind-driven material and some stormwater improvements in the near term.
And I remember back to Conscom days when we approved this thing, you fence it, right?
I do. I didn't get to that portion of what the current management strategy is, but also in the process of understanding that we don't want to rely, like we had 10 years ago, on mostly upland source for nourishment. How do we retain as much native sand on the beach as possible? So we'll put out a seasonal sand fence to try to at least, if not trap the sand, slow the sand down while it's blowing across the beach and coming offshore.
I think one year you tried to double length, just to see if that might have done it. But again, to your point, practices Nate has been doing has been regular, repeated, and, I think the results are proving the point.
Yeah. And so for each alternative, when you have an opportunity to look at the report, and I can share this over as well, we also provided cross-sections because we know the vista is really important and public access is really important here. And so when we talk about any optional timber retaining wall, it's at bumper height. So it doesn't affect the vista. We're not losing parking. We're not disrupting the user experience. And so we really do feel like that ongoing reuse of wind-driven sand is sound, reduces the rate of erosion, presents a cost savings to taxpayers. But there are optional components, the stormwater management and the wall, that could be implemented to complement the existing management strategy. So I think in the near term, what's being done really does make sense. As we think a little bit further out, because the coastal processes analysis showed that relatively resilient in the near term, more vulnerable in the long term, we also thought about how the town could address that. And so this second alternative considers a larger beach nourishment project, so beyond the 2,000 cubic yards that Nate, or the up to 2,000 cubic yards that Nate can place on the beach annually. It includes the same options for a timber retaining wall and really emphasizes the stormwater management. And you'll notice that there are two different color hatchings. One keeps all of that nourishment above the high tide line, so that's a lighter lift from a permitting perspective. And the other one has that nourishment extend right down into the flats to basically expand the amount of beach that's available at high tide. And really the only difference is a larger volume, so a slightly higher cost, and a longer permitting pathway because you need to talk to the Army Corps about it.
How do you keep it? How do you keep that larger area stable if it's part of-
Sacrificial, just like anything, right?
It's going to go.
Okay.
Yep.
However, the placement of a larger volume
Yeah.
typically creates greater longevity out of the project because if you place the larger volume of material, some of it will erode, but then it equilibrates with the sand that's out on the flats.
Gets to balance.
So you're balancing out this, we call it a sediment debt. A lot of these shorelines are sediment starved, so once some of that material erodes, it provides greater stability for what's left up on the beach. And again, here, we're looking at a couple of beach nourishment options. This is the cross-sectional profile. Offers only minor improvements to resilience, but it's a step in the right direction. There are improvements to stormwater management as a part of this, and really no impacts to services or parking. And then getting back to Mr. Matheson's recommendations. So thinking about one step further, This alternative considers bridging the gap between the two existing dunes. And it's likely, I mean, we look back at the aerials all the way back to the 30s. There's been a lot of foot traffic over this area for a very long time. But if the foot traffic was concentrated to a couple of access pathways, and if a little bit of elevation was added and some vegetation planted, we do feel like it would naturally stabilize and build. And so this alternative looks at bridging the gap between the two dunes. It's not as big, not as tall, and probably not as robust because we're cognizant of the view shed, the user experience, and the fact that this will continue to build over time. But this alternative includes dune restoration, a little bit of beach nourishment seaward of it to try to make up for the area where the dune is restored. We want to make sure that we're offsetting that little bit of recreational beach where the dune might be restored. And we could still, or the town could still invest in stormwater management, could still invest in that timber retaining wall as a backstop for any wind-driven material to cut down on the maintenance.
So these are incremental.
Incremental. They could either be phased, or we have some recommendations about what we think might work well, or some alternatives that might work better than others. And so this provides the cross-sectional view. It's a low-lying dune, only about 3 feet high, so only up to maybe the hood of a car if you were sitting in the parking lot. This offers substantially more resilience than beach nourishment alone because it gives the sand somewhere to run up and drop out and accrete and build.
Yeah.
So it's likely going to reduce more of that wind-driven sand into the parking lot. It won't eliminate it, but it'll help capture some of it. Still includes improvements to stormwater and some, though limited, impacts to services and parking. There might be slight reconfiguration. Having a dune present is different than just a flat profile, and how you access the beach is a little bit different, but we didn't feel like it was too significant a disruption.
More Moby mats. Yay.
And then the last alternative here. So what changes with this last alternative? You'll notice that the parking lot now has a flat edge. If I toggle back, it's jagged here, and it's cut back to the snack shack in this figure. And so there's some reconfiguration of parking. We've got some ideas about that. There's some removal of asphalt around the snack shack to create a picnic area similar to what you have over at Nauset Beach, but a much smaller scale. And then there's a relocation or potential optional relocation of the restroom back to the back corner of the lot where you could potentially still tie into the existing septic, but I think we want to be clear about this alternative. And before I jump to the cross-sectional view, when we talk about parking, what's in this lighter shade is all town right-of-way along Skakit Beach Road. So if there were any losses of parking as a result of any of these alternatives, there is the potential to keep it really proximal to the site and not end up in a position where folks are having to shuttle in. But I think I want to be clear about this alternative. It is much higher cost, it is long-lasting, but it also has the greatest impact to services, greatest impacts to parking, and based on the risk profile that we see from the coastal processes analysis, we don't feel like we need to go there at this time. And I just want to be clear about that. Though, in the future, as conditions change, it's not a bad thing to at least have in the back of your mind.
At that time, you might not be able to get to Skakit Beach, though.
That's the point. I mean, even
Yeah.
stormwater fix is not gonna.
Right. And to be clear, where Skakit Beach floods, or Skakit Beach Road floods, would be all the way back beyond Captain Linnell House, and as you're approaching the beach from the Marsh side. So we hope nobody's down at the beach in the middle of our next historic storm.
They've got a boat.
It was part of our low-lying study a long time ago, that area.
That section of road, correct. Yep. And I think that it's going to be an important conversation to consider whether the the roadway gets addressed in concert with any improvements down at the beach. When we think about our key takeaways from this process, I think that number one, we've already covered that the town's current management strategy is working, and honestly, in the near term, it should continue. And I think it's consistent with some of the goals and objectives that the town and the residents laid out as a part of this project. It helps hold the line, you're maintaining the visitor experience, and it's supporting many of the project goals, especially if stormwater is addressed as kind of an a la carte consideration. More costly site alterations, so alternative 4, where we're thinking about cutting back and relocating, we don't think that that's warranted at this time. It's not appropriate at the site because current and near-term risk of flooding is low, okay? And then the last thing that we feel like we can recommend coming out of this, we don't feel like alternative 2, the beach nourishment alone, really provides the level of resilience if you're going to invest. We really feel like our recommendation would be, at the very least, if the town is looking to take a more proactive rather than reactive posture to the next impact, to at least develop engineering plans and permits for alternative 3, which is the dune restoration alternative. That doesn't mean you need to build it now, but it would allow the town to minimize disruptions if and when the next impact occurs. It'll allow the town to get spun back up and open the beach more quickly after an impact. Again, it's kind of a proactive position from a resilience perspective. We would be able to incorporate in the stormwater management component, and I think it provides the town with the flexibility to proceed with a project in this location when it's warranted by the conditions on the ground, availability of funding, public support, et cetera. So it keeps kind of a card in your back pocket to be prepared to proactively respond if and when
I'm glad you
it's
mentioned
necessary.
that outside funding, because as we know, the governor's Make Ready Act, the environmental bond bill, is close to passage any day now, and it has significant funding for these. And I would see the design and the success of current management would only be in our favor to get some funding to go to the next step.
Absolutely, and I think that the town's investment in this initial look at the site bodes well for any future grant application as well. And so that's all I had for the group tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
What a great presentation, Adam. You know, I have to say, you know, it's, Mark, you know, got to the dune restoration, but, you know, when we've been around as long as we have and see the changes that Mother Nature do, every site is so specific. They really are so case-specific. You know, you can't take what Breakwater did or the Cape Cod Canal, God forbid. I mean, every site has got its own nuances, so, you know, to do the analysis you do is really essential to be sure that we're mapping out the right next steps. Board members? Oh, Nate, please.
Thank you. You put on alternative 3. I just want to kind of give you my thought. That we permit for alternative 3, but it just gives me tools in my tool belt, right? But what I envision, there's certain things that need to be fixed at Skakit. The crumbling asphalt, always an issue. We're continuing to throw asphalt at it, pieces of asphalt on the beach. Delineating that edge of asphalt with a knee wall, regardless of, you know, the effectiveness of it for trapping sand, will also delineate walkways, so to minimize erosion from pedestrian access, keep the asphalt from crumbling onto the beach, and the stormwater component, where, you know, right now we need to fix the stormwater. We get these major washouts, and then the beach gets like these huge river washout of sand on it that I'm constantly feeding this beach with sand due to stormwater runoff. So a knee wall on the edge, give me the permit so that I can dump sand at higher volumes on the beach side of the wall, and plant it, and then put some fencing in front of that. So don't think of me taking up frontage for some expansive dune. It's just additional sand that I'm permitted to do right now in front of a knee wall, plant it, and see what nature can do with that, with some fencing in it, right? So it might grow on its own like we've seen at Nauset. And I think those are actionable items in the near future that really would help improve the experience at Skakit.
I love this. This is, I lived on that side of town for so long that, and watched the erosion, but I love the solution that it's dynamic, that it's proactive, that it doesn't seem to me it will cost a lot, and it maintains one of our biggest assets for multiple generations to use all the time. And so I was partial to this solution myself.
And it's also nice to hear that we're in pretty good shape at Skakit.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous to say that.
Yeah. Well,
And I think it's important. I mean, in good shape is relative.
right.
It's good to be proactive and make sure that if conditions change, or if we get just the right storm, that the town
Storm
has a
after
plan
storm
and is
after storm.
prepared.
I'd
Yeah.
love to follow up. If you ever hear of more insights, research in terms of the ice that
The
we saw.
icing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really is curious to know how much actually went down as sediment and stayed. Because we saw a lot of sand and ice through the blizzard. Not that we want to wish those again, but, you know, nice to say, you know, there are benefits of these extremes, because we might be in more extreme mode for the future.
Wow. But
Yeah.
is it a pain at Rock Harbor? I mean, if it's an asset in one.
Oh,
at
the
one
damage
end-
on
Yeah.
docks and slips were like, anyway, Michael.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Adam. I was able to attend some of the public hearings, so thank you. And
Great.
you know I'm key on addressing Skakit. I'm very supportive of option 3 right away. I mean, I think if we had thought of that ahead of Nauset Beach and had been ready and had done these things, I'm for being proactive. This is our second biggest asset as a town in regards to beaches, which is some of our biggest assets we have. I think we should be acting on it sooner than later. Yes, I think we have a phased approach, but I think people want to protect these assets. And we saw what happened with Nauset Beach. I understand sewers and the different things that, I mean, I think, as I've said in the past, I think we should be doing compostable toilets at any of our beaches in the future. And we should really be taking, you know, best practices from our national parks, be it, you know, Yosemite or Yellowstone. I mean, they're all using compostable toilets. Why we are still thinking in the future we're going to use at very sensitive areas, septic or something like that, doesn't make sense to me. But I love it. Thank you for doing it. I know there's also some of the questions that came up to you and me and at the public hearings. This was great, but there's also some, you know, love and attention that needed to be given to Skakit, I think. And I know in the past, a lot of it is focused on Nauset Beach. Of course, that's definitely a driver for us as a town. But some of the other minor things, and I know you addressed that too, which you didn't mention, but I know you and Rich have looked at this and just in really kind of enhancing the customer experience, if you will, or enhancing the residential or visitor experience when they come to that beach, having it kind of, I hate to use the word cleaned up a little bit, but spruced up, if you would. So thank you for doing that and taking that into consideration too. Because that was some of the public comments that first started a lot of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll just say, you know, don't judge Skakit Beach by its appearance in April.
Right.
That's certainly something that I want to reiterate. It's just the nature of the beast, what's left and the timing of when to put it back on.
Mother Nature's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, Nate covers a lot of ground, you know? A little landing in South Orleans, you know, a little herring run. There's a lot of ground that Harbor Master covers, and we really appreciate all you do, Nate, because it is reflected in and confirmed by studies like this, so.
Well, I'm surrounded by good people.
You
It's
are.
not Nate.
One last question on the conscom permit. Is that ongoing condition, or would any of this be helpful to, like, file an update to them to confirm what we're doing? I'm just thinking, John would probably welcome this being submitted as a supplement to the current ongoing conditions that you're working under?
Absolutely. I would assume, you know, with expanding the footprint of the nourishment permit, we'd be filing a new notice for that.
Okay.
Probably be a new notice, and then we'd just have to determine if we were gonna keep the nourishment above or below high tide. But I think we could consult with John and see what the best approach might be.
John's
He's good.
I brought him up to speed where we're at.
Mev?
Yeah, thank you, Nate and Adam, and I think I would be a supporter of the third alternative. I think they were all good. What struck me was two things that are a little bit off topic, but in alternative 4, there were 11 or 14 parking spaces created along Rock Harbor Road.
Yep, that's here, and I can go to, yes.
And that
Yep.
seems like something that should get done regardless of what.
We have an audience member rooting for it in the background.
Do we charge for those? 'Cause
Well, no, I think we would have to figure out a way to charge for them or make it sticker only.
Well, I mean,
It could be resident parking only.
Or could be scooters.
There's some removal of some fairly extensive
Yeah.
wilderness at the moment in order to open that up.
It's along the edge, and I think we'd want to get, we did have a look at the wetland resources, and I don't believe, you can't quote me on this, but I think that we were away from the wetland resource areas or didn't identify them in that location, but the bump out would have to be considered, to Nate's point.
And the only thing I would add to that is that if you have enough space so that you don't do parallel parking, I think it would be easier for a lot of people to use than parallel parking. That's just one thing. But the only other thing I want to say is as we talk about Skakit Beach, I think that getting into the whole Gavigan discussion and what's possible on the property and the land that the town owns down Mayflower is something that needs to get sort of.
Wildflower, yeah,
Wildflower.
which is a complicated land ownership
Yeah, let's-
situation down there.
Yes, we're going to stay within scope today. Good job, you guys, really.
Can I ask one other
Yeah, please.
The only reason I bring this up tonight, as we're looking at these alternatives in the plans, is that earlier this week, yesterday at the Economic Development Committee meeting, there was some discussion about the availability of bathhouses and toilets at the beaches. And the representative from the Chamber of Commerce in Orleans began the discussion, which was followed up with a couple of other members on the committee chiming in a similar vein, that the ability for a family to come down, for instance, be at the beach for the day, and then shower and change their clothes, and then stay in town to go to local restaurants or other establishments, shopping or whatever it might be, they feel has really been eroded away because we don't have those adequate shower and changing facilities at the beach, whether it's Nauset Beach or Skakit Beach. You know, your Skakit beaches, you've got the outdoor shower and that's it in the bathroom. And so people that come there for the day with the family, they're sweaty, they're dirty, the kids are, you know, a mess or whatever, they're gonna go home. They're not going to stick around Orleans and contribute to the local economy. They paid their beach pass and that's it, they're gone. So, I only bring that up because I think if we're looking at this now, it might be germane in the discussion in the future that you could anticipate some questioning of what can we do along those lines in terms of adequate showering and changing rooms and whatever that might satisfy those questions that you probably are gonna get.
Yeah, we're gonna be looking for $350,000 in the CIP for the design of restrooms at Nauset Beach this round. So that should be included in the conversation about upgrading. You know, we're potentially looking at, well, that's a whole nother conversation, but, you know, we have a plan for Nauset, and then
We can learn
we're just gonna keep marching forward and taking on projects.
from that.
Skakit will, you know, will be the next one to look at.
Sounds good.
I just thought it would be
Yeah.
germane, looking at this and potential.
Oh, yeah. What I tried to do here is, without, and that's another, it's not necessarily a resiliency conversation more than an upgrade of a facility. I was trying to be here to be sensitive to the fact that, we don't need to take extreme actions now, but there are some things that we should address for resiliency purposes. But the upgrade of the facility should be maybe a separate conversation if we're not relocating for resiliency purposes.
We're not siloed anymore, Andrea.
No, we're not.
Talking
And
across committees and.
no, but it's it's the economic development investment of attractive, we're taking care of the environment, are we also going to take care of the people at these sites? I think that was Judy's point yesterday.
Well, champion me through this next round for the Nauset restrooms, and then we'll
Absolutely.
move on to Skagit.
You got it. Nice job, you guys. Adam, excellent work. Really great.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks for your patience on our other agenda items. So, board members, we have a couple of items under the consent agenda. One is to reappoint Doug Fromm as a regulatory body. This is his third and would be his final term. And the other is a Hawker Peddlers from Mom and Pop's Burgers.
Mr. Chair, I move that we, God, I can't even speak at this hour. I move that we vote yes on the consent agenda for both items, the reappointment of Douglas Fromm to the Cape Cod Commission for Orleans and the one-day hawker and peddler license for Mom and Pop Burgers.
Moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on these two consent items? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you. Next item, Select Board Liaison Updates. Do I dare ask?
No.
No?
Can we skip them, please?
Okay.
When some of us have been here 5 hours.
Yeah, all of us.
Are we okay? Unless there's anything burning that would be of import to report and have in the minutes?
Let me take a quick look now that I said that.
Okay. I'm moving on to future agenda items. And Molly's laughing. It's like, please, it's 8 o'clock. Do we have any future agenda items?
Mr. Pipetown.
I mean, I think we'll look at this, this will need to be on a future agenda.
It certainly will.
Okay. And then the other thing, I think I misspoke, and somebody reminded me, summer solstice is not July.
June 20th.
Yeah.
It is
June.
June 20th.
Amanda,
So-
Absolutely.
So if you're going to be coming to the dedication and the singers and dancers.
June 20th.
Yeah, it's going to be June 20th, and there'll be definitely some awareness out there, so thank you.
Yeah,
So just,
we have time.
I'll check on this side. Anything future agenda that you want to?
Not tonight.
One quick one. You'll see if you do check your email, I was able to listen in on the Mass Municipal Association Attorney General crypto currency slides. Do take a look, because we do have our police chief that would like to come in and share some concerns about this. It may be timed well, Mark Reel, for a potential bylaw change in the fall. So we can talk later.
Bylaw change related to crypto?
Yeah, to ban them in Orleans.
ATMs.
The ATMs.
Oh, the ATMs.
They are scam points for.
Yes, yes, yes.
Until Chase Bank wants to open up an ATM, then it'll be.
One quick thing in terms of future agenda items. Maybe more distant future than. This time of year, clearly, we're probably all aware of the noise generated from leaf blowers, especially in
yes.
the landscaping and
Oh,
whatnot.
it's terrible.
And so I have had a couple of people ask me about that. And I know what our town bylaw says about noise and the exemptions for everything, but I did happen to catch an article last week that I was reading, and I think it was the town of Lexington, but I wouldn't swear to it,
All electric, yes.
that
Yeah.
they have moved to all electric
Yep.
for this equipment, and there's a, like, by a certain point in 2028, there's
Phase
a
in.
lead time for it.
Oh, it's now.
It's already
It
done.
is now.
I brought this up,
Yeah.
we discussed this
Cape
last
Light
time.
Compact will help
Yeah.
with the
Yeah,
transition.
let's,
Last select board meeting.
Yeah.
let's do this justice.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
I would say,
Let's
noise
do
and
it.
lighting are two.
All right, we're
so
just,
that's future.
future agendas, we got it.
Asked.
All right,
Need
could
a
I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, at 8:05, I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.